Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. Mexico reaches an agreement with President Trump to secure the border and pause tariffs, what the two parties have agreed on. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announces that he is now acting director of USAID. Two Chinese nationals are convicted of selling more than 440 pounds of fentanyl precursors to undercover U.S. law enforcement agents. A third individual remains at large. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joins an NFL press conference ahead of the upcoming Super Bowl in New Orleans. There are increased security concerns after a New Year's Day attack killed 14 people in the heart of the French Quarter. Federal employees have 3 more days to decide whether to return to in-person work or accept a buyout from the president. More on Trump's efforts to cut down the federal workforce. How do polar bears survive in extremely icy conditions? Well, a new study finds the secret may lie in their fur. How this research may benefit industrial anti-icing technology.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Donald Trump is now in the Oval Office taking questions from reporters after authorizing more executive action. Let's tune in. All right, I'm being told now that that is over. We will be moving on. President Trump signing an order to create the first ever U.S. sovereign wealth fund. This comes as he's negotiating tariff deals with Mexico and Canada. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Iris, it's good to see you. Tell us what's the latest from the White House.
You as well, Fiona. So President Trump in the Oval Office just now signed executive orders to create the first ever U.S. sovereign fund, and that is going to be an investment fund administered and monitored and basically governed by the U.S. government. And that is another promise that he made on the campaign trail that is now being fulfilled. And basically back at the Economic Club speech, he said that he's going to create money and make the U.S. rich through means like tariffs and some intelligent things. And this is one of them. And he vowed to use this money to invest in U.S. infrastructure like airports and bridges and roads. And just today, he also floated the idea of using it to buy TikTok partially. Launch.
As an example, TikTok, we're going to be doing something perhaps with TikTok and perhaps not. If we make the right deal, we'll do it. Otherwise, we won't. But I have the right to do that. And we might put that in the sovereign wealth fund, whatever we make, or if we do a partnership with very wealthy people, a lot of options.
And during the signing of the order to create this sovereign wealth fund, Trump also said that the 10,000 troops that Mexico is sending to its northern border will be permanent. We know that earlier today, Trump said that he has agreed with the Mexican president after a, quote, very friendly call, that Mexico will send 10,000 National Guard troops to its northern border to stop the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. And in return, President Trump says he will immediately pause the 25% tariffs on Mexican goods as part of the deal. But Trump during the signing also said that tariffs are still on the table as the two sides continue to negotiate over the next month during this pause. And during that signing ceremony, Trump also hinted that he will speak with the Chinese leader Xi Jinping within the next 24 hours about, of course, the 10% tariffs that he is vowing to slap on Chinese goods, over also its role in allowing fentanyl to be going into the U.S. And meanwhile, on Canada, we know that President Trump has already talked with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about this, but no compromise or deal has been announced yet. Trump is slated to speak with Trudeau again at 3 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon. And just now at the White House, a top economic advisor to President Trump, Peter Navarro, just talked to us reporters here, and he said that it's not a trade war, but instead it's a drug war. He said that President Trump is proactively trying to stop the flow of fentanyl into the U.S., which is killing a lot of Americans. He gave the example of how China is sending small parcels of fentanyl through Canada and ultimately ending in the U.S., and he says a small glass can kill a lot of Americans here. And so we are seeing the Trump administration moving full steam ahead to negotiate these deals, hopefully to stop the flow of fentanyl through the borders, both, of course, with negotiations with Mexico, Canada, and upcomingly China. Back to you.
Iris Tao reporting there from the White House. Thank you. European Union leaders gathered today to discuss how to bolster the continent's defenses against Russia and President Trump's tariffs.
Both the USA and Europe benefit from the exchange of goods and services. If customs policy now makes this difficult, it would be bad for the USA and bad for Europe.
It's simple. We think the priority is this strategic agenda and the security of our borders. If we're attacked on trade topics, as a power that holds, Europe has to make itself respected and react.
I think that we have to do everything to avoid this totally unnecessary and stupid tariff wars or trade wars.
It's contradictory to each other to be on the cooperative side within the NATO and to compete in the economic sense.
But I think tariffs are always bad. Tariffs are bad for trade. Tariffs are bad for the United States. They are bad for those who see tariffs imposed. But the answer to tariffs is to reply with same actions, but that is not the topic for today.
The Chinese regime has responded to the Trump administration's tariffs. Trump imposed the 10% tariff on Chinese goods on Saturday. Now, Trump said that China has to stop the flow of fentanyl into the United States. The Biden administration also called out the Chinese regime on shipments of the chemicals that are needed to make fentanyl. The Chinese Communist Party says fentanyl is America's problem. The regime will challenge the tariffs at the World Trade Organization. Beijing's Finance and Commerce ministries also said they would take unspecified countermeasures. Back in New York, a jury convicted 2 Chinese nationals today for selling more than 440 pounds of fentanyl precursors to undercover U.S. law enforcement agents. The Department of Justice also announced the seizure of approximately $900,000 in cryptocurrency that they received for the chemicals. Hubei, a Marvel Biotech executive, Qingzhou Wang, and employee Yi Chen were convicted in Manhattan federal court for conspiring to import piperidine into the United States. Now, Wang was also convicted of manufacturing and distributing methylamine, a precursor for the synthetic stimulant methamphetamine. Wang, Chen, and their alleged co-conspirator, Yang, were among the first Chinese fentanyl manufacturers that the Justice Department has indicted. Yang remains at large in China. Today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that he is acting administrator of the U.S. Agency for International Development. Here's what he said during his tour in El Salvador.
Are you currently in charge of USAID? Or are you
I'm the acting director of USAID. I've delegated that authority to someone, but I stay in touch with him. And again, our goal was to go in and align our foreign aid to the national interest. But if you go to mission after mission and embassy after embassy around the world, you will often find that in many cases, USAID is involved in programs that run counter to what we're trying to do in our national strategy with that country or with that region.
Elon Musk said today that work is underway to shut down the United States Agency for International Development, or the USAID. Musk is heading President Trump's drive to shrink the federal government.
What we have here is not an apple with a worm in it, but we have actually just a ball of worms. If you've got an apple and it's got a worm in it, maybe you can take the worm out. But if you've got actually just a ball of worms, it's hopeless. And USAID is a ball of worms. Mm-hmm. There is no apple. And when there is no apple, you've just got to basically get rid of the whole thing.
Musk said the agency is beyond repair, adding that President Trump agrees it should be shut down. Trump said yesterday that those running the agency had a radical agenda. Now, the USAID is the world's largest single donor, established in 1961. Many Republicans criticized the agency for lacking transparency and oversight in how it spends its nearly $50 billion budget, while many Democrats champion it as a source of life-saving assistance for those in need around the world. The agency's website vanished on Saturday without explanation and is still not active. Congressional Democrats call Trump's USAID funding freeze illegal and ask for accountability from the Department of Government Efficiency. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more on this story. Luis, it's good to see you. Tell us here, what are Democrats saying about the USAID funding freeze?
Well, I'm right here, Fiona, right outside the United States Agency for International Development warehouse, and Senate Democrats just held a press conference rejecting the executive's attempts to shut down or trim down this important agency. We heard from Congressman Jerry Connolly, Jamie Raskin, and even Congresswoman Ilhan Omar from New York and Congressman Goldman all called the actions of the executive illegal. They called Elon Musk a corrupt oligarch and that he was elected by no one to take these actions. Of course, we also have seen protesters and workers of USAID show up to these headquarters. And we also saw the congressional delegation of Democrats attempt to go inside of the building despite the building being shut down today for internal audit. So we've heard from congressional Democrats. They are contesting the actions of the executive, in particular arguing that the power of the purse, the power to assign funds to government agency is a power reserved to Congress and not the executive.
Well, Luis, what is the Trump administration saying about all of this?
Of course, well, Republicans in general and the Trump administration are talking about their mandate to reduce government spending. And of course, let's remember that the United States Agency for International Development has a budget of close to $40 billion on 2024, a significant amount of money that, of course, the Trump administration has ordered through the Department of Government Efficiency to look at and see if they align, as we heard from Secretary Marco Rubio, with an America First policy. Let's listen to what President Trump and also Elon Musk had to say about it.
What we have here is not an apple with a worm in it, but we have actually just a ball of worms. If you've got an apple and it's got a worm in it, maybe you can take the worm out. But if you've got actually just a ball of worms, it's hopeless. And USAID is a ball of worms. Mm-hmm. There is no apple. And when there is no apple, you've just got to basically get rid of the whole thing.
It's been run by a bunch of radical lunatics, and we're getting them out. USAID, run by radical lunatics, and we're getting them out, and then we'll make a decision.
It's worth mentioning that congressional Democrats have made the point that they're willing to have a discussion on modifying the United States Agency for International Development, but having that conversation in Congress and not dictated through an executive order. Back to you.
Luis, thank you for the update. And now Vice President J.D. Vance is speaking. Let's tune into that.
Where it would have passed the United States Senate. Chuck Schumer just refused to bring it up to the floor for a vote. And so, yeah, I think things are a little bit different this time, and we're going to make sure we get this right.
Mr. Vice President.
Now, Henry asked me a question about tariffs. Let me say this, Henry. So I think for a couple of, look, not just a couple of years, for 40 years, with one very obvious exception, I think that we have had successive administrations who have not recognized that America's economic power is not just a source of prosperity, but is also something that we should be willing to put to use to make the American people safer and healthier. And unfortunately, we have had, especially at our southern border, a southern neighbor, and I think an important ally if they want to be, who has not taken their basic responsibility seriously about securing their own border and doing basic law enforcement within their own country. Now, what's happened? What's happened is that even in communities like East Palestine, you have seen a massive explosion in the amount of deadly, poisonous fentanyl that exists in this country. We've seen the toll in orphan children, in families who have lost loved ones, in over 100,000 lives per year, most of which have come, 100,000 lives per year lost to drug overdose, most of which have come from the fentanyl problem. Mexico has got to do a better job, and President Trump's message is very simple. We are done being taken advantage of. Now, actually, I was in the air. I talked to the president very briefly about this. He spoke with the president of Mexico this morning, and the president of Mexico committed to putting 10,000 additional Mexican troops on that southern border, our southern border, of course, the Mexicans' northern border, to take law enforcement more seriously, to go after those Mexican drug cartels a little bit more aggressively. So for literally 3 days, I heard the far left in this country say that these tariffs would make Americans' lives worse off. And what actually happened is the Mexican government was so afraid of the tariffs that they actually are taking their border enforcement and their anti-cartel activity more seriously. That is not a pathway to making Americans worse off. That's a pathway to making Americans better off. Now, the president has also been very clear that we have to rebalance our trade relationship in this country. Every single country, if you look even our northern neighbors, Canada, do Americans realize that the Canadians charge massive, massive tariffs on our products that go into the country of Canada, including on our great agricultural products that people right here in the state of Ohio depend on? Well, if the Canadians are going to use their economic power to penalize Americans, I think it's totally reasonable for the American president to say, we're done being taken advantage of. We, of course, want to have a great relationship with Canada, but that goes both directions. And that's all his conduct and his activity of the last few days was about. We're done being taken advantage of in this country. We have got to rebalance the trade relationship between ourselves and our allies, ourselves and our adversaries. President Trump is committed to that, and tariffs is one tool that he's going to use to accomplish it.
President, listening, talking to folks today and over the last few years, the biggest thing they heard is they don't want this to happen in another community. What are some of those action items you heard talking to the folks during your visit today? You can take back to D.C. kind of, all right, let's hit the ground running on these things.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Most of what I heard today was actually concerns about economic development. Okay, but of course, I've been to East Palestine. This is my, I think, 5th or 6th visit. I've heard a lot about the concerns related to rail safety. And I think there are a few very basic common sense things that can be done. And look, some of this the railways are already doing, but some of this I truly believe is going to have to happen through things like the Railway Safety Act. Number one, you've got to inspect these cars more before they go off. You've got to better use technology to monitor when a train is about to have a catastrophic failure. These are all things that were sort of built into the infrastructure of the Railway Safety Act, and it's something we're going to keep on working on. Look, this can't happen again. As much as I believe in East Palestine, and I really do believe in this community and its people, what they're rebuilding through shouldn't have happened. It's not their fault, and if we can take any learning from this, it's hopefully not to force another community to go through it again.
Still want more assurance.
So to Lee Zeldin, one of the things that was done, the question that's still raised is why the initial burn was allowed to happen from the EPA standpoint in the first place. And then when that plume went across into Pennsylvania and other states, a lot of testing wasn't done there. Back to what you were just talking about, the tariffs. So much money was spent on foreign countries, on allowing illegals into our southern border. A lot of this community feels like they've been abandoned, and it's been addressed already. But what is going to be done tangibly that you can see going forward that may address some of those? Will there be more testing done on areas that haven't been tested yet? More funding or holding Norfolk Southern accountable, more than the $70,000 they've offered per person?
Yeah, so a couple of quick things on that, and I'll take one more question, then we'll have to hit the road. So if you go back to the original promises that Norfolk Southern made, right? One, there was a big settlement for all the people who were personally injured from the disaster. I'm not talking about the environmental problems. I'm talking about those who were directly injured, like some of the chief's firefighters who sacrificed and need to be compensated for it. It turns out that a lot of those compensation promises have not been met, even though they've been built into court orders. That is unacceptable. We're going to talk to Norfolk Southern about it. Another Norfolk Southern promise is we talked about building a training facility in East Palestine that would train firefighters from Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio. But also, and the governor made this point to me privately, unfortunately, the firefighters behind me know more about how to deal with a railway disaster than almost any firefighting corps in the entire country. Let's turn that into knowledge that we can spread across this tri-state area and actually make better firefighters, or at least more well-trained firefighters, out of that process. Well, Norfolk Southern promised they were going to provide the money to build that training facility, and every single person to a man has told me that money has not come. Well, that's unacceptable too. So I think that a lot of this comes down to making sure the promises of Norfolk Southern actually turn from promises into reality, and that's something we're going to work on and certainly take back to Washington.
Still want more assurance, Vice President, residents still want more assurance that any health concerns in the future will be covered, and they also want further health studies, which may be highly unlikely if the administration is making cuts to agencies like the National Institute of Health and the CDC. So what will you do about this?
Well, first of all, I'd say cutting ridiculous bureaucracy is actually facilitates providing important services to people here on the ground. We all know that we have a government that wastes too much money, frankly, where there's a lot of fraud built into how our government spends money. And one of the things that does is waste taxpayer dollars. But the other thing that it does is it ensures that the money that we have in our resources at the federal government don't end up going to the people who actually deserve it. And so President Trump's desire to bring some efficiency back to the federal government, that's not going to be bad for the people of East Palestine. It's actually going to ensure that the resources we spend on health actually go to people on the ground rather than bureaucrats. And frankly, we're not talking about a lot of money. When I was working on this with the Biden administration, you know, we needed $5 million to start the long-term health study that we wanted to start. I know there's some negotiation about where exactly that money is going to come from. I think it should come from Norfolk Southern and not from the taxpayers. But we are committed to ensuring that people's long-term health needs are met on the one hand, and that those long-term health questions are answered. I really do believe that a critical piece of rebuilding East Palestine is giving people confidence that they can raise a family in health and safety here in this community. Now, I believe that's true, but the only way that other people are going to believe that's true is if folks like Lee Zeldin at the EPA and the broader administration take those health and safety concerns seriously. I promise the people of East Palestine we are taking those concerns seriously, and we will do so for the remainder of President Trump's administration. God bless you guys. Thank you for being here.
Vice President Vance answering some reporters' question in East Palestine, Ohio, on the second anniversary of that devastating train derailment. All right, coming up, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joins an NFL press conference ahead of the upcoming Super Bowl in New Orleans. There are now increased security concerns after a New Year's Day attack killed 14 people in the heart of the French Quarter. We'll have that and more after this break.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
On streets across America, young people are homeless, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn. But the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. Homeless young people are afraid and alone. Your monthly donation right now will show them they are loved and safe.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
Just like all of you, I had problems sleeping. I had tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. I'd flip-flop all night, use my arm for support, and fall asleep, or I'd wake up with a sore neck or maybe a headache. Well, quality sleep comes from keeping your neck straight at night. You have to fill in that space between your head and your bed. That's why I invented MyPillow. MyPillow's patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it doesn't matter if you sleep on your back, stomach, side, or any combination of all three.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night, and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get Classic King MyPillows for only $19.98. Queen size just $18.98. Standard Classic MyPillows only $14.98. That's right, only $14.98. Plus all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free.
Thanks for staying with us. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is visiting the southern border today, accompanied by Border Czar Tom Homeland. The two are in El Paso to assess the situation firsthand. Hegseth met with troops and surveyed their operations securing the southern border. Now, this is Hegseth's first trip as Secretary of Defense. He said of the troops, quote, "They are the backbone of our nation's security. Their dedication to service and unequaled courage safeguard the freedoms we hold dear." Hundreds of troops are stationed in the El Paso region to support customs and border protection. The Pentagon announced it will send another 1,000 troops to the southern border. And staying on border and immigration, the Department of Homeland Security is moving to end deportation protections for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans. The decision means that about 348,000 Venezuelans with temporary protected status, or TPS, will lose deportation relief and access to work permits by April. A government notice said conditions in Venezuela no longer warranted the protections and that they were contrary to U.S. interests. TPS is available to people whose home country has experienced a natural disaster, armed conflict, or other extraordinary event. Former President Biden greatly expanded the program to cover more than 1 million people from 17 different nations. Hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans arrived in the U.S. during Biden's term. About 300,000 additional Venezuelans have TPS protections that expire in September and were not affected by today's decision. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joined an NFL press conference today to answer some questions about plans for the upcoming Super Bowl in New Orleans. Now, officials say that they are confident in their security precautions after a New Year's Day attack killed 14 people who were celebrating in the heart of the French Quarter.
The world is a much more dangerous place, but here in the homeland, we are safe. And I will tell you that right now we have no specific credible threats to this event at the Super Bowl, which I think should give us all a sense of security, but also knowing that we will adjust that as needed. But today there are no credible threats that we have that are on the radar for this event that is coming up on Sunday.
More than 125,000 visitors are expected to converge on New Orleans this week for parties, concerts, and other events ahead of the big game. The city has already begun shutting down and limiting traffic on roads near the Superdome. No one will be allowed inside the cordoned-off area surrounding the stadium without credentials. The perimeter will include blast barriers. More than 100 bomb-sniffing dogs will have scoured the 400,000-square-foot venue prior to kickoff. House Republicans have yet to unveil their massive bill packed with GOP priorities on border, energy, and tax policies. Instead, lawmakers will address Americans' energy production and the fentanyl crisis, while President Trump's nominees continue to work their way through the confirmation process. NTD's Melina Wisecup has a look ahead for the week.
On the heels of their conference retreat, House Republicans returned to Capitol Hill this week to pass bills related to fentanyl and American energy. The HALT Fentanyl Act would permanently classify fentanyl-related substances as Schedule I drugs, making it on par with heroin and methamphetamine. A strong bipartisan vote passed the bill through the House in the last Congress, but it stalled in the Senate. Now Republicans will pass it again, with hopes that their new Republican trifecta will get it to the White House. They'll also push a bill this week to prevent a ban on fracking. This comes as Republicans are still short of details for their massive bill that would be stuffed with major policy changes on energy, taxes, and immigration. But the House Speaker told reporters they're getting closer.
We'll be voting on that by late February, and that will keep us on the aggressive schedule that has been set out to make sure we accomplish this mission.
Meanwhile, over in the Senate, confirmations are still underway. Senators will start this week voting on Christopher Wright as the Energy Secretary and Doug Collins as the VA Secretary. Later, Trump's Attorney General pick, Pam Bondi, will get a final vote in the Senate. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
As part of President Trump's sweeping tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, the three countries have also been banned from the de minimis exemption. Now, this is a rule that allows imports worth less than $800 to be shipped directly to consumers in the U.S. duty-free. They're also exempt from screening procedures. But now Trump has delayed the bans on Mexico for a month. However, these bans still apply to Canada and China. The president says smugglers are taking advantage of the de minimis rule in order to ship fentanyl precursors into the country. Joining us now to discuss is Bernie Hart, Vice President of Customs of Supply Chain Logistics Platform Flexport. Bernie, thank you for joining us. Now, talk to us about this. There's this investigation that found de minimis shipments were often subject to less rigorous checks, which reportedly allowed illegal substances to enter the country undetected. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, they do come in with less requirements for sure. If it's de minimis, then you're really, when you're filing with customs, it's considered not entering really into the United States, and there's not a lot of rules and regulations behind it. This is the harmonized tariff schedule in terms of how it is classified to come in, which determines the overall duty rate. But if it's coming in under $800, you don't have to pay duties, taxes, and fees on this. So what de minimis is intended to do is to put tighter controls on this. So as products come into the United States, even those under $800 are going to be required to have more data elements supplied to them. So from an end consumer perspective, the consumer is going to end up paying more on this because they're going to have to pay the duty associated with it. But also there's the entry fee. So when brokers process transactions on behalf of companies previously invoking de minimis, they're now going to either be probably an informal entry or a formal entry, which is going to mean there's going to be additional costs associated with that. That has to be passed on to someone, which in this case is going to be the end consumer.
We'll come back to that in a moment, but I want to ask also, is this going to be a challenge for customs workers to handle this sudden change and enforce this ban all of a sudden?
Yeah, I mean, just like any business, the government has to go through and update its overall systems to take advantage of these additional tariffs, if you will, that are going to be out there. So even if customs cannot make those changes in the timelines that have been proposed so far, you can go and get retroactive duties associated with this. So they can even apply this after the fact. But customs is working, as we understand it, very diligently to get their systems updated to accommodate these additional duties, taxes, and fees that previous transactions under de minimis were able to come in without any of these additional fees, if you will. Now they're going to be imposed. And we do believe the government is working very quickly to make the changes on their side. But as I said, they can even apply these retroactively, so after the import has taken place.
Now, Bernie, talk to us more about how suspending China's de minimis specifically would impact the American average consumer, in terms of both prices and shipping times. I mean, are we likely to see these ultra cheap Chinese online marketplaces suffer maybe?
Yeah, that remains to be seen, but I would think potentially yes. And here's the reason. And from a U.S. customs perspective, before the e-commerce boom, if you will, we were doing about, as a country, we were filing about 100,000 entries with U.S. customs on a daily basis. That has ballooned to 4.1 million. The vast majority of that additional 4 million is coming from what would be de minimis transactions or e-commerce transactions. That is definitely taxing the overall system. It's got concerns, obviously, from a fentanyl perspective, which is how the executive orders are written today. But from an end consumer perspective, the end consumer likes air shipments, mostly, to get their products as quickly as possible, as cheap as possible. This will definitely impact the American consumer from being able to get the cheapest goods the quickest way possible.
Now, Bernie, of course, one of the main reasons President Trump says he's suspending this de minimis exemption is because of the flow of fentanyl precursors, right? But then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau from Canada, he said on Saturday that actually less than 1% of fentanyl in the U.S. was smuggled from Canada. And this is something we've heard a lot of Canadian officials talking about. If that's the case, what do you think is the thinking behind suspending de minimis exemptions for Canada?
Yeah, well, it is a way to get product into the United States without having to follow a lot of rules and regulations associated with it. So I think de minimis, in addition to the changes to de minimis, in addition to it specifically being taxable, if you will, there's some extra data that the government is looking for on this. So, for example, on the invoice description, as opposed to just putting miscellaneous or clothing, they want it to be much more descriptive. They want it to be looked at and checked by a broker potentially to verify that the HTS number that's being used is valid, to try and cut down some of these transactions that are taking place today that are very, very, I don't want to say suspect, because if they were, then you could identify them earlier, but just putting more controls in place so it's not as free and easy to move those products into the United States. And I did read about Canada saying 1% of the fentanyl coming into the US. I'm not aware of that overall number from Canada. We just know that the drug issue is real, and it spiked dramatically when we enforced or allowed de minimis and the e-commerce piece to peak, if you will.
Bernie, before we go here, let's talk about tariffs on a larger scale, right? Trump has delayed those tariffs on Mexico. We're not sure if that's going to be permanent, but these tariffs on Canada and China, he's still going full steam ahead with them. What is the most significant impact that you're expecting if things continue to develop as aggressively as the rhetoric would suggest?
Yeah, so there's retaliation that's built into the executive orders. So if another country retaliates back against the US, then the tariffs can be increased even more. What you have to be concerned with this is overall cycle time. And when I say cycle time, how quickly are goods going to cross the border and then get into the commerce of whatever country, whether that's US, Canada, Mexico, in this overall case. So it's an overall cycle time associated with this. And then, as you talked about at the very beginning here, there's systems that have to be changed and updated, not only on the US side, but the Canadian and the Mexico side, if there's retaliation against this. And then who's going to, as you already alluded to, who's going to bear the brunt of this is the end consumer, whether that consumer's in US, Canada, or Mexico, of these additional costs. And then the reconciliation effort associated with this. There's some that believe that an executive order like this, especially with USMCA, is going to probably get hit with some legal concerns, and some lawsuits are going to probably end up getting filed with this. So we don't see this working itself out relatively quickly. But if it continues to escalate, what we've all got to be concerned with, if it starts shutting down borders or it really causes delays at borders because more products are being held for exam or being scrutinized more than what they've got today, especially because of just the congestion that exists in a lot of our borders.
Right, that would be concerning. Bernie Hart, thank you for joining us today.
Sure, thank you.
When we come back, a look at President Trump's buyout offer to 2 million federal workers. What this means for the labor market, we speak with an analyst after the break.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return.
Right now at Mathis Home, buy one Lazy Boy recliner, get the second one free. That's right, buy one recliner, get the matching recliner absolutely free. Recliner pairs start at just $7.99. It's your chance to save on the handcrafted quality and comfort that Lazy Boy is famous for. And get 2 great chairs for one low price. They're all in stock now with easy financing and fast free delivery. Buy one, get one free on Lazy Boy recliners, only at Mathis Home.
بیست و سه سال 16 سال عمري ما هفت
اما داعش کردی آن برانبر خوشک و دایکان یزدی ما کاری که دور لهمو چمت دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارودوخی که است های به تایبت لعراق و سوریه بشه که دگرت و با حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
مریم بو او هفت روز من بو و داعش از کرد
تامبوم كرا قوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بحر في ذا نبو باوان رحم نبو
قدامنا سؤالان من خادران نزل باوان نفستم بس نا ما ناي بس ناش بيجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبر تي حملي زارود الدم حواس سيوان همو جيبر
وحشیگریه که توا عیاره ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرده و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده که همانه روزانه دست فروشیده
اليوم التوزيع كلنا نصيب.
Imagine being a child, you know, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Welcome back to Newsroom. President Trump has offered a buyout to federal workers. Now, this offer will allow employees to continue receiving pay and benefits until September 30th without needing to return to the office. The move is part of the president's efforts to cut down on the federal government workforce and roll back COVID-era remote work policies. Employees have until this Thursday to decide whether or not to accept the offer. Now we're going to bring in Julia Pollack, Chief Economist of ZipRecruiter, to discuss this. Julia, thank you for joining us. I want to ask you first, before anything else, has ZipRecruiter got any inquiries from any federal employees who are perhaps interested in the buyout and may transition to the private sector?
Yes, there is an uptick in search traffic from job seekers in DC. And I'm sure that we will see some people take up this offer. The problem, of course, with the government is that typically the workers who take up offers like this are the ones with the best outside opportunities, and those are your vested rights, your top talent. So sometimes this can have a bad effect on the government and cause you to lose the people you'd rather keep and keep the people you'd rather lose.
That's an interesting point you make. Now I'm wondering, is this transition from public to private sector something that you see commonly? Or have you seen some sort of an uptick since President Trump came back to office?
Well, public sector roles are roles with among the highest tenure levels. So people often stay in these roles for a very long time. The people who select these roles do for a number of reasons, and the benefits are good, the pay is quite high, and so you don't see that much movement out of them often. That's part of the problem, I think, that the administration is confronting. How do we trim the size of the workforce when natural attrition isn't very high?
Now, with the labor market cooling off, as we've been hearing about recently, if we see suddenly this large number of former government workers entering the mix, do you see it being harder for people to find a job?
Well, it likely won't show up much in the aggregate statistics. It's not like these people will become unemployed at once. They are not being laid off overnight. They have months in which to find alternative employment. So most will transition from being employed and receiving a paycheck to having a new job. It does increase the amount of talent available in certain industries where these skills are most directly transferable. And so one could see that in the most directly affected talent markets, there's an oversupply of talent and that wages might come down slightly.
Now, is this buyout offer that we're seeing from the president something that is typical of the private sector?
Well, in the private sector, you do sometimes see this, but it's more common for employers to let people go and lay them off and provide perhaps 2 months of severance pay or 3. Often severance is dependent on how long people have served in the role previously. So the public sector has a lot more constraints and a lot more protections for workers. Private sector companies are also required, if they're large enough, to provide some kind of severance and some kind of advance notice. But the private sector has a lot more leeway when it comes to letting people go.
Right, and some have also questioned Trump's authority to make such an offer in the first place. We're seeing unions telling people not to accept the offer just yet, but the deadline, of course, it's this Thursday. There's only around 3 days. How do you expect that to play out?
Well, so the issue is that the government can't really promise to spend money beyond the period through which spending has been authorized. And so that is the question here. Can the government legally talk about offering people pay through September if funds have not been authorized that far out? I'm sure this will go to the courts and there will be all kinds of debates. That said, it is a fairly attractive offer compared to private sector layoff offers, and I'm sure there are many workers who are in very high demand and who will take this offer and get alternative employment and run with it.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, federal workers have also been told to return to the office, and we're seeing many of these big multinationals in New York City doing the same. Do you expect to see us going back to a time where we're all at the office, or are you seeing work from home as being something here to stay?
So work from home appears to be here to stay in pretty much every sector except government. And on ZipRecruiter, if you look at remote shares of job postings, they're flat as a pancake in most sectors. The one exception has been government, and it was an exception before this administration came into office. So the remote share of government jobs was 10.5% in 2022, 7.5% in 2023, and 5.5% in 2024. There's been a huge backlash against government workers working remotely. There's been a crackdown on so-called bubble bath bureaucrats, people taking their calls of the taxpayer from the bathtub. Senator Joni Ernst sort of led the charge, but even President Joe Biden was saying that he was hopeful that all federal workers would return to the office, and that was in September of 2023. So there's been a broad-based backlash, and this is sort of a continuation of that, really.
Now, one of the draws, of course, of public service has always been the job security, right? You got those career federal workers. Do you see that changing under the Trump administration?
Well, the Trump administration, one of its first executive actions was to try to change federal workers from a protected class of workers into at-will employees. So waits to be seen how that turns out.
Absolutely. Julia Pollack, Chief Economist of ZipRecruiter, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, the latest on the mid-air plane collision near Washington, D.C. The Army Corps of Engineers today began lifting the wreckage of the American Airlines passenger plane from the Potomac River. Officials said the process could take a week, and they vowed to recover all 67 victims. So far, officials have recovered the remains of 55 victims. After that, they will focus on recovering the wreckage of the Black Hawk helicopter. Officials expect the debris removal to continue until at least February 12th. The National Transportation Safety Board will investigate the cause of the collision using the wreckage. The NTSB said it will release data retrieved from both aircraft today. Moving on now to Philadelphia, where business owners and customers returned to the site of the plane crash near Roosevelt Mall yesterday. That accident left some locals rattled. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the community impact.
Retired teacher Susan Wolf visited the Philly pretzel factory Sunday to support the business. The 54-year-old was pretty shaken by last week's plane crash.
It's scary. I mean, the mall has been there. I've lived in this neighborhood my entire life. I'm 54 years old, so this is my neighborhood. And to know that it was so close to the mall and all the new stores that came into the mall recently in the last few years, and it's just so sad.
Marinucci's deli owner Andrew Doherty recalls hearing the crash.
So we heard it. We heard a loud bang. We didn't know what it was, maybe a car accident, something like that. And we went outside and saw the smoke cloud, and the building shook a little bit. The doors were popped open from the blast.
A quarter-mile area was still closed off to the public. Doherty said he was worried about his community.
There's 20 or 30 businesses that lost they probably won't reopen. And we are thankful because we're in the spot, but again, we're tragically sad for what happened in our neighborhood.
Doherty added he hoped the local community would come together to help those who lost their livelihoods. At least 7 people died when a medevac plane crashed near the shopping center Friday. 19 people were injured. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
President Donald Trump says he does not think troops will be necessary in Panama. However, he has repeated his vow to regain control of the Panama Canal, which he says is now being operated by the Chinese Communist Party. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more, as Secretary of State Marco Rubio just met with the Panamanian president yesterday.
President Trump stated Sunday that China is controlling the Panama Canal.
It was not given to China, that was given to Panama foolishly, but they violated the agreement, and we're going to take it back or something very powerful is going to happen.
Trump also raised concerns about Chinese influence, citing what he estimated to be 70% of signage along the canal written in Chinese.
The most expensive project ever built. We lost 38,000, and what happens? China owns it all of a sudden. It's not going to happen. We're not going to let that happen.
The comments came as Secretary of State Marco Rubio was in Panama on Sunday.
Today, it's one of our strongest economic partners, certainly in the hemisphere, and an important catalyst for so much trade and commerce that happens in the United States.
Rubio warned Panamanian President Jose Raul Mulino that Washington will take necessary measures if Panama does not take immediate steps to reduce China's influence and control over the canal. Mulino later announced he would not renew Panama's Belt and Road Initiative agreement with China, signed in 2017.
We will study to see if we can end it earlier or not.
Mulino also pledged to review agreements involving China and Chinese businesses and announced increased cooperation with the U.S. on migration. However, he reaffirmed Panama's sovereignty over the canal.
The sovereignty of Panama is not in question. That is very important.
Gatestone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang says Trump's moves on the canal are critical as Chinese companies control ports on each side, speaking on Fox News.
China is now building the 4th bridge over the Panama Canal. Right now, there are just abutments in the water, but in a year and a half from now, there will be steel over the waterway. China can bring that bridge down.
The United States spent over a decade constructing the Panama Canal, which connects the Caribbean Sea to the Pacific Ocean. In 1999, Panama assumed control of the 51-mile-long waterway under a 1977 treaty. The Trump administration accuses Panama of failing to uphold the canal's neutrality, a key requirement of the treaty. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Secretary of State Rubio addressed the issue of illegal immigration while observing repatriation flights in Panama today.
In this flight alone, there were at least 6 or 7 people with criminal records, many of whom were seeking to continue forward, and it destabilizes all the countries along the route and along the way. And ultimately, if they reach the southern border of the United States and enter the United States, it creates serious problems for us. This is an effective way to stem the flow of illegal migration, of mass migration, which is destructive and destabilizing. And it would have been impossible to do without the strong partnership we have here with our friends and allies in Panama. And we're going to continue to do it, and we're grateful for it. Thank you.
President Donald Trump saying his team is currently working to set up a meeting with both Russia and Ukraine. This is as NATO admits European defense is not possible without the United States. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar reports.
Talks about ending the Russia-Ukraine war are increasing. Multiple parties are trying to close a ceasefire deal in the years-long conflict. President Trump now suggests he might be getting closer to actually starting negotiations.
We have meetings and talks scheduled with various parties, including Ukraine and Russia.
The Kremlin on Monday confirmed that a meeting might be on its way, but didn't give any details.
Apparently, the contacts are being planned. We also have a process of planning. As of yet, we have nothing new to say.
Meanwhile, in Europe, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte met the British Prime Minister on Monday. Rutte says NATO wouldn't be able to defend Europe without the help of the US. That's because of the many hostile countries which could pose a threat.
It is a geopolitical thing which is going on. The US realizes that, the European side of NATO realizes that. It is China, North Korea, Iran, all getting connected to Russia.
And in Moscow on Monday, a pro-Russia paramilitary fighter is dead after an explosion in an apartment building. Armen Sarkisyan was the founder of a volunteer battalion fighting in Ukraine. Russian law enforcement reportedly say the explosion was a planned assassination and that they're investigating it. Russian authorities did not mention Ukraine in their statements. Ukrainian authorities also have not yet commented. Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
An international team of scientists has identified the unique anti-icing properties of polar bear fur, and the culprit, a natural grease coating. The discovery explains how the species endures Arctic conditions and could help in developing industrial anti-icing technologies.
Polar bears swim in icy waters, roll around in snow, and slide down hills, all in sub-zero conditions. But whether swimming or sliding, their fur remains ice-free. Now a team of international scientists has identified why, helping explain how the species endures Arctic conditions.
Ice doesn't build up on, whereas send a human like me up to the Arctic, you'd see large tracts of snow and ice build up in my hairs and my eyebrows, beard if I had one.
In a study published in Science Advances, researchers from Trinity College Dublin examined hair samples from 6 wild polar bears. They found that the fur's sebum, a natural oily coating, contained cholesterol, diacylglycerols, and fatty acids, which significantly reduce ice adhesion. Julian Carolyn is a PhD candidate from Trinity College Dublin and the Amber Research Ireland Centre.
So the key is, in these hair oils, there are components then that stop ice from sticking to them. And then through an analysis of these hair oils, we separated them out because it's quite a complex concoction. We found a few specific components that were very interesting. And then we simulated how they'd interact with ice, and we found that they were very good at repelling.
Carolyn says that thick, grease-coated fur may also play a role in polar bear hunting strategies. It could also help them save energy by sliding over ice.
If they get weighed down with a lot of snow or ice, that could be the difference between them sort of catching a seal or not, or being stuck to the ice.
When the grease was removed, the fur behaved similarly to human hair, allowing ice to attach more easily. Scientists say the findings could not only help in the development of sustainable coatings for surfaces exposed to extreme cold, but could also play a role in replacing synthetic forever chemicals such as PFAS with bio-inspired alternatives.
Coming up, President Donald Trump signs an executive order calling for the creation of a sovereign wealth fund. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Supermodel Cindy Crawford doesn't just walk the red carpet, she rocks it. At 58, she steals the show and wows the press. Hollywood Life exclaims, Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. While Page 6 raves, she's still as gorgeous as ever. What is Cindy's secret? It's meaningful beauty. And now with new advanced formulas, it's better than ever. Watch as the appearance of lines and wrinkles are diminished in just weeks. It's no wonder everyone's talking about meaningful beauty.
My makeup artist said, your skin has been looking great lately. What products are you using? And I said, I'm using Meaningful Beauty. And she said, really? I've tried Meaningful Beauty before. I love those products. And then the other lady down in the trailer said, I use Meaningful Beauty. I love it.
Our new and improved formulas deliver age-defying ingredients even deeper into the skin where wrinkles begin. And this brand new offer is Cindy's most exciting ever. Because when you order, you'll get Cindy's exclusive Super Brightening Duo, a $120 value absolutely free. First, you'll get 60 of our Revive and Brighten eye masks, the celebrity secret that visibly smooths, awakens, and restores the area around your eyes. Next, discover the power of our Vitamin C Biphase Brightening Oil for an immediate boost of glamour and glow.
I'm not ashamed to say I am 53 years old. Thank you, Cindy.
The total effect of this free gift package? A red carpet ready complexion. Get all this, a $300 value for just $49.95. But you must act quickly. Results guaranteed or your money back.
So make the call or go online now and put yourself on the path to the most beautiful skin of your life. Trust me, it's worth it.
This special offer is not available anywhere else, so don't delay. Scan the code, go to meaningfulbeauty.com, or call the number on your screen now.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98. But it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free.
From all of us here at MyPillow, thanks, America!
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. Mexico reaches an agreement with President Trump to secure the border and pause tariffs. Meanwhile, Trump signs an executive order calling for the creation of a sovereign wealth fund. Elon Musk says today that work is underway to shut down the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio announces that he is acting director of USAID. 2 Chinese nationals are convicted of selling more than 440 pounds of fentanyl precursors to undercover U.S. law enforcement agents. A third individual remains at large. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joins an NFL press conference ahead of the upcoming Super Bowl in New Orleans to address the security concerns about Sunday night's championship game. In Europe, the EU Commission admits to funding NGOs to influence lawmakers to vote for green policies. An inquiry is ongoing by members of parliament.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Trump signing an order to create the first ever U.S. sovereign wealth fund. This comes as he's negotiating tariff deals with Mexico and Canada. Now we're going to bring back in NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Iris, tell us what's the latest.
Just now, President Trump signed an executive order to create the first ever U.S. sovereign wealth fund, and that is an investment fund to be administered and owned by the U.S. government. It's also another fulfillment of his 2024 campaign promise. Back on the campaign trail during his speech, The Economic Club, he said that he will make the U.S. rich through means like tariffs and other intelligent things, and this is one of them. And back then, Trump vowed to use it to invest in roads and bridges and other infrastructure projects, and today he also hinted at using it to partially buy TikTok. Watch.
As an example, TikTok, we're going to be doing something perhaps with TikTok, and perhaps not. If we make the right deal, we'll do it, otherwise we won't. But I have the right to do that, and we might put that in the sovereign wealth fund, whatever we make, or if we do a partnership with very wealthy people, a lot of options.
And during the signing of the order to create this sovereign wealth fund, Trump also said that the 10,000 troops that Mexico is sending to its northern border will be permanent. We know that earlier today, Trump said that he has agreed with the Mexican president after a, quote, very friendly call, that Mexico will send 10,000 National Guard troops to its northern border to stop the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. And in return, President Trump says he will immediately pause the 25% tariffs on Mexican goods as part of the deal. But Trump during the signing also said that tariffs are still on the table as the two sides continue to negotiate over the next month during this pause. And during that signing ceremony, Trump also hinted that he will speak with the Chinese leader Xi Jinping within the next 24 hours about, of course, the 10% tariffs that he is vowing to slap on Chinese goods, over also its role in allowing fentanyl to be going into the U.S. And meanwhile, Well, on Canada, we know that President Trump has already talked with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about this, but no compromise or deal has been announced yet. Trump is slated to speak with Trudeau again at 3 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon. And just now at the White House, a top economic advisor to President Trump, Peter Navarro, just talked to us reporters here, and he said that it's not a trade war, but instead it's a drug war. He said that President Trump is proactively trying to stop the flow of fentanyl into the U.S., which is killing a lot of Americans. He gave the example of how China is sending small parcels of fentanyl through Canada and ultimately ending in the U.S., and he says a small glass can kill a lot of Americans here. And so we are seeing the Trump administration moving full steam ahead to negotiate these deals, hopefully to stop the flow of fentanyl through the borders, both, of course, with negotiations with Mexico, Canada, and upcomingly China. Back to you.
Elon Musk said today that work is underway to shut down the United States Agency for International Development, or the USAID. Now, Musk is heading President Trump's drive to shrink the federal government. Musk said that the agency is beyond repair, adding that President Trump agrees that it should be shut down. Trump said yesterday that those running the agency had a radical agenda. The USAID is the world's largest single donor, established back in 1961. Many Republicans criticize the agency for lacking transparency and oversight in how it spent its nearly $50 billion budget. Meanwhile, many Democrats champion it as a source of life-saving assistance for those in need all around the world. The agency's website vanished on Saturday without explanation, and it is still not active. Today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that he is acting administrator of the U.S. Agency for International Development. Here's what he had to say during his tour in El Salvador.
Are you currently in charge of USAID, or are you
I'm the acting director of USAID. I've delegated that authority to someone, but I stay in touch with him. And again, our goal was to go in and align our foreign aid to the national interest. But if you go to mission after mission and embassy after embassy around the world, you will often find that in many cases, USAID is involved in programs that run counter to what we're trying to do in our national strategy with that country or with that region.
Congressional Democrats call Trump's USAID funding freeze illegal and ask for accountability from the Department of Government Efficiency. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more.
Well, I'm right here outside the United States Agency for International Development warehouse, and Senate Democrats just held a press conference rejecting the executive's attempts to shut down or trim down this important agency. We heard from Congressman Jerry Connolly, Jamie Raskin, and even Congresswoman Ilhan Omar from New York and Congressman Goldman all called the actions of the executive illegal. They called Elon Musk a corrupt oligarch and that he was elected by no one to take these actions. Of course, we also have seen protesters and workers of USAID show up to these headquarters. And we also saw the congressional delegation of Democrats attempt to go inside of the building despite the building being shut down today for internal audit. So we've heard from congressional Democrats. They are contesting the actions of the executive, in particular arguing that the power of the purse, the power to assign funds to government agencies is a power reserved to Congress and not the executive. Republicans in general and the Trump administration are talking about their mandate to reduce government spending. And of course, let's remember that the United States Agency for International Development has a budget of close to $40 billion on 2024, a significant amount of money that, of course, the Trump administration has ordered through the Department of Government Efficiency to look at and see if they align, as we heard from Secretary Marco Rubio, with an America First policy. Let's listen to what President Trump and also Elon Musk had to say about it.
What we have here is not an apple with a worm in it, but we have actually just a ball of worms. If you've got an apple and it's got a worm in it, maybe you can take the worm out. But if you've got actually just a ball of worms, it's hopeless. And USAID is a ball of worms. Mm-hmm. There is no apple. And when there is no apple, you've just got to basically get rid of the whole thing.
It's been run by a bunch of radical lunatics, and we're getting them out. USAID run by radical lunatics, and we're getting them out, and then we'll make a decision.
It's worth mentioning that congressional Democrats have made the point that they're willing to have a discussion on modifying the United States Agency for International Development, but having that conversation in Congress and not dictated through an executive order.
Over now to South Africa, where a civil society group today backed President Trump's threat to cut aid to the country, but the group urged the president to target the country's politicians rather than its people.
Punish the politicians that are pushing destructive policies. Do not blanket punish the country. And we'll see where that goes. It's now still early days. We'll see what the investigation that Trump has announced concludes and what it finds. But AfriForum's stance is punish the politicians, not the citizens.
AfriForum is an organization focused on advancing the interests of Afrikaners, a subgroup of the country's white population. President Trump said yesterday that the country is confiscating land and badly mistreating, quote, certain classes of people. A new law grants the South African government broad powers to confiscate land without compensation. The law states that land may be taken when it is deemed just and equitable. South Africa defended itself today against attacks on the policy made by Trump and Elon Musk. South Africa's president issued a statement saying the government had not confiscated any land. He said he looked forward to engaging with Trump to foster a better understanding over the matter. Joining us now to discuss developments with the USAID is Sarah Parshall-Perry, Senior Legal Fellow of the Heritage Foundation. Sarah, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Now, there's this debate over whether Trump actually has the power to shut down this agency, as Elon Musk put it. So how does it appear to you?
Well, I would tell you that the USAID agency was created by executive order itself back in 1961 with President John Kennedy. So we know that what is done by executive order can be undone by executive order. There's nothing preventing him constitutionally from being able to merge two like-oriented federal agencies into one more streamlined federal agency. I think it's a brilliant move, and considering the budget of $40 billion for USAID and the fact that it has been for quite a long time unaccountable to American taxpayers, many of these organizations are funding and have funded left-wing political causes without providing real value for the services they claim to offer. I think it's a high time for him to do exactly what he did today.
Well, then if it's ever challenged in court, or if we see more pushback to Trump's decision, will the employees of the agencies need to wait on the sidelines until it's resolved, or do they get to continue to work? What do you see there?
Well, what I anticipate is something very similar to the buyout option that President Trump has given many of the federal employees who would otherwise be terminated. Now, the way this works is that these individuals will continue to receive their salary and their benefits, but they will not have access to the work that they were doing before. So we anticipate that because this will be likely challenged in court, as many executive orders are and already have been, we've seen litigation forthcoming, these individuals will continue to be paid during this process where the government reshuffles both agencies and reallocates exactly where this particular developmental funding is supposed to go. But in the meantime, yes, it will require some patient, watchful waiting, but I think it is in the end going to be a significantly beneficial move for all American taxpayers who don't want to do things like fund green energy projects overseas or fund abortion on demand overseas. This is where portions of their tax dollars have gone, and it's high time to hold these particular agencies accountable.
Well, you know, there are critics to Trump's idea of shutting down this agency. Those critics are saying, you know, that this agency provides aid to countries and peoples that need it around the world. What's your response to that? If this agency is not doing that, what needs to happen to fill that gap?
Well, I think merging with the State Department is the best way to go. Again, the State Department itself can and should oversee things like federal aid funding. There's nothing constitutionally preventing it from doing just that. But again, in the notion of bigger bureaucracy, something that we've seen particularly so under the past administration, this is an about-face, a reversal of course. And in fact, the Trump administration is trying to downsize government. His priority is for American economic interests first. It is unlikely that all of these aid programs will be cut. There is certainly good work to be done in humanitarian aid overseas, but Trump is a businessman first, and he recognizes the power of the American dollar and what we need to do to be able to solve things like the housing crisis and flat economic development. And he's doing that right through this opportunity of merging the two agencies into one. So while there is good humanitarian work to be done, I anticipate we will see it continue in a more limited form through the State Department. But number one, come American interests, and that's what he's intending to do.
Sarah, talk to us more about the relationship between the USAID and the State Department. I mean, we saw today Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he just said that he's now acting director of the agency, and he's saying that the agency is supposed to respond to policy directives of the State Department, but it's refusing to do so. So what's the chain of command here?
That's very interesting. Yes, in fact, we know one of the reasons that the shutdown of the agency and eventual merger came is because they were responding, or refusing to respond, I should say, to Trump's executive orders, their requests for documentation, refusing to turn over classified information to which the president and the executive agency are entitled. They were stonewalling at every turn, and so did everything they could to essentially stymie the president's agenda as concerned the State Department itself. So the chain of command would ordinarily have USAID acting as a responder to the State Department anyway. That's what they were attempting to do. But unfortunately, no one at USAID was willing to play ball. And that's why that agency was subsumed within the State Department itself. This was an agency that was already directly supposed to be responsible to the State Department. So it's really not a stretch to merge two of them together.
Before we go here, talk to us about transparency. What is that issue when it applies to the USAID?
So USAID's mission has been funded largely through programs through non-governmental organizations, NGOs. Many of these support interests that are contrary to the current administration, number one. But number two, many of them are dark money interests, and they're spending money on essentially filling their own coffers and buffering their own bottom line, not just purportedly sending things like humanitarian aid overseas. This is really something that they've been hiding for quite some time. You know, Elon Musk called it a den of vipers. I think that's not too great of an overstatement. Indeed, these organizations have not been held accountable when in fact they are paying for things like HR consulting costs and media costs. And these are funded programs through the American taxpayer dollar that should be funding humanitarian aid, but they have never been held to account. That is the nature of an NGO. They operate with more flexibility, but these particular organizations that have been on the government payroll for a long time have never been transparent. And it is one of the reasons, I think, that initiated the move today.
Sarah Parshall-Perry, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
When we come back, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joins an NFL press conference ahead of the upcoming Super Bowl in New Orleans. This to address the security concerns about Sunday night's championship game. Stay with us.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
If you're watching this, I didn't make it. Thanks to people like you and the American Heart Association, my family never had to see this video. I was a healthy 47-year-old, no symptoms, but then my doctor discovered I had a bad heart valve that was beyond repair. The scariest day of my life was when I was sitting on a gurney as I looked and my wife was at my side and my kids had me surrounded. Deep down, you know, this could be it. This could be all there is.
Not having him around for Riley to grow up with and have that papa figure in his life, that would have been hard.
This little heart valve did something really big. It saved my life. I wouldn't be here today without it. The research for this heart valve was funded by the American Heart Association. And that's why I'm asking you to become a monthly donor for just $19 a month. When you do, you'll help fund the next medical breakthrough that could save your life or the life of someone you love. You'll also provide life-saving CPR training and help certify hospitals to give the best care to those who have had a heart attack or stroke. When you give $19 a month, we'll send you a t-shirt just like this one. From the moment you put it on, you'll help raise awareness for heart disease and stroke. Since my surgery, I had a son get married. I had a daughter graduate high school. I had another daughter give birth to a precious boy. I would have missed all that. And that's why it's personal for me.
We're very thankful for everyone who is a donor because it gives us more time.
Every 40 seconds, someone has a heart attack. The next person you help save could be someone you love or even you. Become a monthly donor today by calling or going to helpheart.org because it's personal.
Come to Mathis Home today and save big during our presidential savings event with markdowns in every department. We've got all the latest looks for every room in your house at incredible savings. Get huge discounts on hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles. Or shop online and find an unbeatable selection of over 230,000 items. We've got it all. For great quality, all the latest styles, and best value, come to the presidential savings event at Mathis Home.
Thanks for staying with us. The latest now on the mid-air plane collision near Washington, D.C. The Army Corps of Engineers today began lifting the wreckage of the American Airlines passenger plane from the Potomac River. Officials said the process could take a week, and they vowed to recover all 67 victims. So far, officials have recovered the remains of 55 victims. After that, they'll focus on recovering the wreckage of the Black Hawk helicopter. Officials expect the debris removal to continue until at least February 12th. The National Transportation Safety Board will investigate the cause of the collision using the wreckage. The NTSB said it will release data retrieved from both aircraft today. Over now to Philadelphia, where business owners and customers returned to the site of the plane crash near Roosevelt Mall yesterday. The accident left some locals rattled. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the community impact.
Retired teacher Susan Wolf visited the Philly Pretzel Factory Sunday to support the business. The 54-year-old was pretty shaken by last week's plane crash.
It's scary. I mean, the mall has been there. I've lived in this neighborhood my entire life. I'm 54 years old, so this is my neighborhood. And to know that it was so close to the mall and all the new stores that came into the mall recently in the last few years, and it's just so sad.
Marinucci's deli owner Andrew Doherty recalls hearing the crash.
So we heard it. We heard a loud bang. We didn't know what it was, maybe a car accident, something like that. And we went outside and saw the smoke cloud. And the building shook a little bit. The doors were popped open from the blast.
A quarter-mile area was still closed off to the public. Doherty said he was worried about his community.
There's 20 or 30 businesses that lost they probably won't reopen. And we are thankful because we're in the spot, but again, we're tragically sad for what happened in our neighborhood.
Doherty added he hoped the local community would come together to help those who lost their livelihoods. At least 7 people died when a medevac plane crashed near the shopping center Friday. 19 people were injured. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Disaster averted at an airport in Houston. More than 100 people were evacuated from a plane on the runway yesterday after an engine caught fire. No one was injured, thankfully. United Airlines Flight 1382 aborted takeoff after the crew received an indication that one of the engines had failed. This terrifying video, taken by a passenger, shows flames leaping out from under the plane's wing. The plane was due to depart from George Bush Intercontinental Airport to New York's LaGuardia. The Federal Aviation Administration says it'll investigate the incident. It comes less than 1 week after an American Airlines passenger jet collided with a Black Hawk helicopter over the Potomac River in Washington. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is visiting the southern border today, accompanied by Border Czar Tom Homan. The two are in El Paso to assess the situation firsthand. Now, Hegseth met with troops and surveyed their operations securing the southern border. This is Hegseth's first trip as Secretary of Defense. He said of the troops, quote, "They are the backbone of our nation's security. Their dedication to service and unequaled courage safeguard the freedoms we hold dear." Hundreds of troops are stationed in the El Paso region to support customs and border protection, and the Pentagon announced that it'll send another 1,000 troops to the southern border. A jury in New York convicted 2 Chinese nationals today for selling more than 440 pounds of fentanyl precursors to undercover U.S. law enforcement agents. The Department of Justice also announced the seizure of approximately $900,000 in cryptocurrency that they received for the chemicals. Hubei Marvel Biotech executive Qingzhou Wang and employee Yi Chen were convicted in Manhattan federal court for conspiring to import piperidine into the United States. Wang was also convicted of manufacturing and distributing methylamine. This is a precursor for the synthetic stimulant methamphetamine. Wang, Chen, and their alleged co-conspirator Yang were among the first Chinese fentanyl manufacturers that the Justice Department has indicted. Yang still remains at large in China. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joined an NFL press conference today to answer some questions about plans for the upcoming Super Bowl in New Orleans. Officials say that they are confident in their security precautions after a New Year's Day attack killed 14 people who were celebrating in the heart of the French Quarter.
The world is a much more dangerous place, but here in the homeland, we are safe. And I will tell you that right now we have no specific credible threats to this event at the Super Bowl, which I think should give us all a sense of security, but also knowing that we will adjust that as needed. But today there are no credible threats that we have that are on the radar for this event that is coming up on Sunday.
More than 125,000 visitors are expected to converge on New Orleans this week for parties, concerts, and other events ahead of the big game. The city has already begun shutting down and limiting traffic on roads near the Superdome. No one will be allowed inside the cordoned-off area surrounding the stadium without credentials. The perimeter will include blast barriers, and more than 100 bomb-sniffing dogs will have scoured the 400,000-square-foot venue prior to kickoff. When we come back, President Trump signing an executive order today calling for the creation of a sovereign wealth fund. And in Europe, the EU Commission admits to funding NGOs in order to influence lawmakers to vote for green policies. An inquiry is ongoing by members of parliament. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week. Still couldn't pay the bills. Skipped meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. You know, I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 children face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive, and they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for families across America.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, okay. And I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger, from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Earlier today, President Trump signed an executive order calling for the creation of a sovereign wealth fund. He also took questions from reporters in the Oval Office. Here's a playback.
We have some very exciting news today. We have numerous fronts are being covered. Before we do that, Will will give me certain proclamations. We'll sign them, and you'll hear a little bit about them. Will, please.
Yes, sir. First, we have for your signature 5 official designations of special envoys. The first is Mr. Steve Witkoff, who's actually in the room, to be your Middle East envoy.
Where is Steve? Steve Witkoff, everybody. He's done a great job in the Middle East, really great. But we'll see how it all turns out. It's complex, but I think he's going to do very well.
Next, we have Mauricio Claver-Carrón to be your special envoy to Latin America, sir.
Okay, good man. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have retired General Keith Kellogg to be your special envoy on Russian-Ukraine issues.
We've made a lot of progress on Russia, Ukraine. We'll see what happens, but a lot of progress has been made. We're going to stop that ridiculous war. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have designation of Rick Grinnell, to be your envoy for special missions.
I sent him to California to turn on the water. We turned it on. It was not easy because we had to go through a lot of environmentalists that are causing a lot of problems. And we have billions of gallons of water. It was on 3 days ago. You probably saw. It should have gotten a lot of press, but it didn't get much. All we're doing is giving Los Angeles and the entire state of California virtually unlimited water, which they could have done 5 years ago, which I told them they should do, but the environmentalists stopped them. And we opened it, and we did it regardless of the state. And now the state seems to be very happy. I spoke with Gavin Newsom, and he's very happy. I almost called him by the other name, didn't I? My little nickname for him. But I think they're all happy. They have a lot of water in California. Too bad we didn't have it about 2 months ago, right? Mr. President, that was, by the way, that was a big move. We have, I don't know if you saw the pictures that were released of the water pouring down from the Pacific Northwest and Canada and lots of other places. And it's a pretty amazing sight.
Mr. President, Rick Grinnell had a big Friday trip as well.
He had a very big Friday trip. You're right. We'll talk about that. He's a good man, Rick.
Lastly, sir, we have a designation of Mark Burnett as your special envoy to the United Kingdom.
You know who Mark Burnett is? I figure he should be good. He's certainly done a great job. A friend of mine and very talented guy. We have very talented people working for us. I'll hold that one up because Mark gets so much television. We'll hold it up, right? He'll be thrilled to see it. He's going to do a good job.
Thank you, sir. Next, your administration has smashed records for appointing large numbers of highly qualified, capable people at all levels of the federal government. These are 28 sub-cabinet level officials being appointed to a number of different departments and agencies. Some of them are quite important positions like departmental general counsels, but these are people who have been pre-vetted and have received your approval previously.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next, this is an executive order. This charges your Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, and your Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, to begin a process that will hopefully result in the creation of an American sovereign wealth fund.
It's a very exciting event. We're going to have a sovereign wealth fund, which we've never had. We have a lot of things that create wealth, and you're seeing that over the last 2 weeks. I think we've created more wealth. Other people have created de-wealth. The people, my predecessors, we're creating a lot of wealth. Scott, maybe you'd like to say something about it, and I'd ask also Howard to say something about it.
Yes, sir. This is very exciting. We're going to stand this thing up within the next 12 months. We're going to monetize the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet for the American people. We're going to put the assets to work. And I think it's going to be very exciting. We're going to study best practices as done around the world. It'll be a combination of liquid assets, assets that we have in this country as we work to bring them out for the American people.
The extraordinary size and scale of the U.S. government and the business it does with companies should create value for American citizens. If we are going to buy 2 billion COVID vaccines, maybe we should have some warrants and some equity in these companies and have that grow for the help of the American people. So I bring all these things together. I think we'll create, Scott and I will create an amazing sovereign wealth fund for you, sir.
So other countries have sovereign wealth funds, and they're much smaller countries, and they're not the United States. We have tremendous potential in this country, tremendous. You're seeing that, what's happened just in a short period of time. And as an example, TikTok, we're going to be doing something perhaps with TikTok, and perhaps not. If we make the right deal, we'll do it, otherwise we won't. But I have the right to do that, and we might put that in the sovereign wealth fund, whatever we make, or if we do a partnership with very wealthy people, a lot of options, but we could put that as an example in the fund, and we have a lot of other things that we could put in the fund. And I think in a short period of time, we'd have one of the biggest funds, and you know, some of them are pretty large, I must tell you. Some of the, like the Saudi Arabia fund is on the large side, but eventually we'll catch it. But we're going to create a lot of wealth for the fund, and I think it's about time that this country had a sovereign wealth fund, and these two gentlemen and some others are going to work with them very closely, and they'll be heading it up, and they're going to do a great job. Two highly respected people that have done unbelievably well in the world, in the real world. So that's a big deal, huh?
Yes, sir. I think it's going to create value and be of great strategic importance.
Mr. President, why is it important for Elon Musk to have access to the payment systems at Treasury?
Well, he's got access only to letting people go that he thinks are no good if we agree with him, and it's only if we agree with him. He's a very talented guy from the standpoint of management and costs, and we put him in charge of seeing what he can do with certain groups and certain numbers. Some of the numbers are horrible, what he's found. Think of it, $100 million on condoms to Hamas, and many other things that are frankly even more ridiculous. And they're finding tremendous waste, really waste more than anything else, I think you could say. Probably fraud and abuse can be added to it, the more standard waste, fraud, and abuse. But they're finding tremendous amounts of really bad things, bad spending. You've been writing about some of it, frankly, and some of the things that they've been doing is just terrible. Elon can't do and won't do anything without our approval. And we'll give him the approval where appropriate. Where not appropriate, we won't. But he reports in, and it's something that he feels very strongly about, and I'm impressed because he's running, obviously, a big company. It has nothing to do, if there's a conflict, that we won't let him get near it. But he does have a good natural instinct. He's got a team of very talented people, and we're trying to shrink government, and he can probably shrink it as well as anybody else, if not better. Where we think there's a conflict or there's a problem, we won't let him go near it. But he has some very good ideas, and we have a lot of very other talented people also. We're bringing in the most talented people in the world. By the way, we just unrelated, but we have two of the most talented people in the world, the legendary Rupert Murdoch and Larry Ellison. So they are two legends in business, publishing, and probably every other. Rupert is Larry pretty much in a class by himself, right? I mean, although you may have a couple of bucks more, I don't know, but Rupert is in a class by himself. He's an amazing guy, and Larry is Larry. Larry's one of the most serious players anywhere in the world, so it's an honor to have you. This has nothing to do with you people, but they're here, and I thought it would be appropriate. I'm sure you didn't recognize them. If you're all going crazy, they're saying, what are they doing here?
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, on the tariffs, is there any chance that Canada or China could also get out of the tariffs after you struck a deal with Mexico?
Well, nobody's out with Mexico. We had a great talk with Mexico, and we had President Sheinbaum is a woman. I like her very much. We've had good relationships, but we have to stop fentanyl from coming in, whether I like somebody or not, and we have to stop the illegal aliens from coming in. I think we've lost 200,000 people on average a year for many years, much higher than the 100,000, could be even closer to 300,000. And they've agreed to put in 10,000 soldiers permanently, like forever, 10,000 soldiers at their side of the border and stop fentanyl and illegal aliens from coming into our country. They have a big incentive to do. Other than that, we've agreed to talk and consider various other things. We haven't agreed on tariffs yet, and maybe we will, maybe we won't. But we have a very good relationship. I also spoke with Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada, and we had a good talk in the morning, but I did ask him a couple of questions, like, you know, banks aren't allowed to do business in Canada. Canada is very tough. Canada is very, you know, we're not treated well by Canada, and we have to be treated well. Banks are not, as an example, allowed. Did you know that? That banks, American banks, are not allowed to do business in Canada. Can you believe that? And that's one of many things, and we talked about it, and I think we'll win most of the subjects. But for some reason, a lot of things have been very unfair with Canada. I noticed that in the first term. You deal with people, and after a while you begin to realize, like you learn that Larry Ellison's very tough to do business with, okay? He's a very tough guy. I mean, I'm sure you're shocked to hear that. But Canada is very tough. They're very, very tough to do business with. And we can't let them take advantage of the U.S. They don't take our agricultural product for the most part. They don't take our cars. They make cars, but they basically don't take our cars. And, you know, we don't need, and look, I think we're going to have another good conversation today. We're actually speaking at 3 o'clock again. But we don't need them to make our cars. We don't need them to give us lumber. We don't need them for agricultural products because we have all the agriculture we need. They don't take our agricultural product for the most part, our milk and dairy, etc. A little bit they do, but not much. We take theirs. And as far as cars are concerned, they took in a big percentage, almost 19% of the market. And, you know, I wouldn't mind making our cars in the United States, so we have a problem there. I'd like to make our cars in the U.S. We don't need Canada to make our cars. With that being said, we're going to have another call at 3 o'clock. We had a call this morning. It was a pretty good call, I'd say. So the call with Mexico went very well in the sense that they're very strong now on the border. They're going to put soldiers there. So, actually, they're best military soldiers, and they're going to be at the border, 10,000. That's a lot of soldiers. And they want to protect it also. You know, they don't want people running through Mexico, coming through Mexico to come into our country. So they're going to do that. And then we're going to talk about other things over the next, and we're going to have, over the next 30 days, we're going to have Scott, Howard, and Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, lead the delegation, and we're going to have a big negotiation with Mexico. I'll be involved too, and President Sheinbaum will be involved to see whether or not we can work something out on the tariffs.
What about fentanyl?
China will be speaking to China probably over the next 24 hours.
On fentanyl and China, President Trump.
We don't want fentanyl coming into our country. Now, we had another big thing, speaking of China. China's involved with the Panama Canal. They won't be for long. And that's the way it has to be. Marco just got back, as you know. He's in the process of coming back. I guess he's almost back by now. And he had a very long conversation with the leader of Panama, the respected man, and some others, the entire leadership group. And we're trying to work a deal on the Panama Canal.
And that there is President Donald Trump earlier today signing more executive orders and answering some questions. And we're staying on President Trump's team because he's saying that his team is currently working to set up a meeting with both Russia and Ukraine. This is as NATO admits that European defense is not possible without the U.S. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazar reports.
Talks about ending the Russia-Ukraine war are increasing. Multiple parties are trying to close a ceasefire deal in the years-long conflict. President Trump now suggests he might be getting closer to actually starting negotiations.
We have meetings and talks scheduled with various parties, including Ukraine and Russia.
The Kremlin on Monday confirmed that a meeting might be on its way, but didn't give any details.
Apparently, the contacts are being planned. We also have a process of planning. As of yet, we have nothing new to say.
Meanwhile, in Europe, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte met the British Prime Minister on Monday. Rutte says NATO wouldn't be able to defend Europe without the help of the US. That's because of the many hostile countries which could pose a threat.
It is a geopolitical thing which is going on. The US realizes that, the European side of NATO realizes that. It is China, North Korea, Iran, all getting connected to Russia.
And in Moscow on Monday, a pro-Russia paramilitary fighter is dead after an explosion in an apartment building. Armen Sarkisyan was the founder of a volunteer battalion fighting in Ukraine. Russia law enforcement reportedly say the explosion was a planned assassination and that they're investigating it. Russian authorities did not mention Ukraine in their statements. Ukrainian authorities also have not yet commented. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Britain will not be choosing between the European Union and the United States. The EU is due to be hit with tariffs, but President Trump has suggested that Britain may avoid them. Now, there have been concerns that difference could force Britain to choose between allies. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more from London.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer insisted Britain will stay resolute in its commitment to working with both the European Union and the United States. This comes after President Trump said he'll impose tariffs on the EU, but suggested Britain might escape this. Speaking in Brussels, Starmer said it's really important the UK works with both allies.
Both of these relations are very important to us. We are not choosing between them, but that's historically been the position of the UK for many, many decades now.
Starmer has been seeking to reset relations with the EU in the post-Brexit era. However, concerns are growing that Trump's proposed tariffs could force Britain to pick sides. On Sunday, Trump said the EU will definitely face tariffs due to its trade imbalance with the US, but suggested the UK might be able to secure a trade deal.
So the UK is way out of line, and we'll say the UK, but European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line, but I'm sure I think that one can be worked out.
Trump said he and Starmer get along very well. Starmer's official spokesman said he looks forward to working with Trump to deepen trade, investment, security and defense relations. During his recent trip to Brussels, Starmer met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Rutte was asked about the ongoing dispute over Greenland after Trump expressed interest in having the US buy the territory from Denmark. Rutte said there has been something very useful about Trump's move here.
President Trump alerted us to the fact that when it comes to the High North, there is a geopolitical and strategic issue at stake. I would say that it's not only about Greenland. This has to do with Finland, it has to do with Sweden, Norway, Iceland, yes, Greenland, and therefore Denmark, also Canada, and also the US.
Trump in January said controlling Greenland is necessary for the free world. It comes amid concerns that the Chinese regime is stepping up efforts to bolster commercial and military capabilities in the Arctic. Rutte said that NATO is looking at the best way to make sure to tackle those challenges. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Staying in Europe, the EU Commission admits that it sought to influence lawmakers to vote for green policies. This comes after media outlets revealed NGOs received funds from the EU. NTD's international correspondent David Vives reports.
The EU Commission has spent around $1 billion since 2019 to fund a coalition of 185 environmental NGOs. Their objective was to push EU lawmakers to validate policies related to the EU Commission's green agenda. The current Commissioner for Budget, Piotr Serafin, approved the findings at the plenary session. The Commission admitted that some funding agreements were inappropriate, acknowledging pressure on NGOs to lobby lawmakers directly. According to energy policy expert Fabien Bouglet, this raises ethical questions about the use of European funds.
It's not illegal, but that's crazy if you think about it. The EU Commission is the executive power of the European Union, but they have used their money to manipulate EU lawmakers, the legislative power.
EU Member of Parliament Dirk Gotting is investigating the contracts between the EU Commission and the NGOs. He spoke of lobby lists with names of politicians to be contacted and a highly orchestrated collusion between the Green Coalition, led by former Energy Commissioner Timmermans, and the left-wing majority of the European Parliament. Bouglet says similar cases have also occurred on a smaller scale in EU countries.
It has to be said that the same case happened in Germany, as an inquiry commission revealed that the Minister of Environment did funded governmental NGOs to support its own anti-nuclear energy campaigns. And a very similar case is happening in France.
Since 2019, EU lawmakers have voted on a series of Green Deal policies. These policies have notably introduced new punitive measures regulating sectors such as transport, energy, industry and agriculture, aiming for carbon neutrality by 2050. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Coming back, are you concerned about growing waste and its impact on your neighborhood? While a community in Toronto is finding new ways to make a positive impact, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by US News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
Concerned about growing waste and its impact on their neighborhood, a community in Toronto is finding new ways to make a positive impact. Every few months, they come together to do their part in reducing waste in their city by reusing, repairing, and recycling, and rethinking post-consumer goods. Take a look.
I love the fact that when something is fixed, the person who owns the fixed item gets to ring the bell, and we all cheer.
Spurred on by the environmental issues seen around the world, the oldest neighborhood in the city of Toronto, Canada, created an event aimed at helping their community be more environmentally conscious.
We've been around since 2019, so it's 5 years into the making. The concept of our waste reduction group was, how do we make things available for the consumers that they can easily incorporate in their lives?
They call it the Remarket, a community event which promotes the remarketing of usable post-consumer goods.
Our goal is to have people rethink, or be consciously thinking about what they spend their money on, how they use it. So the focus is really on reuse and repairing, and then recycling if that's as the last resort, as opposed to throwing in the landfill.
The Remarket event takes place over 2 days and is hosted every few months at the St. Lawrence Market. The second day at the Remarket is centered around the Repair Cafe, where volunteers apply their knowledge and skills to bringing damaged goods back to life.
Somebody brought the bear, but there were holes, and it was spilling its stuffing all over the place, and it was going to go to the dump. But somebody said, well, tomorrow is Repair Cafe, maybe somebody can fix it. And I did. One of the other fixers thought, this bear should have a heart, and she cut it out, but she only pinned it on. So I said, oh, I can sew it on. So I did. I got some red thread and just sewed it on.
So our digital projector was broken. We love watching movies together, and we usually like to project them on our wall just because it's either that or a laptop.
I think it's so much better to get more life out of something than throw it away or have to replace it, but it seems like Tom's doing a pretty great job.
Sometimes repairing an item is about a lot more than just keeping stuff out of the landfill.
People aren't bringing in things necessarily that are expensive that couldn't easily be replaced, but also things that have a value to them that has nothing to do with the cost or the money involved, where it's an item that was given to them by a loved one who's not with them anymore.
The organizers remain dedicated to improving their community and doing what they can to empower and inspire others to be more conscious about the environmental impact we all have.
This is a lifelong project. This is a sort of a change in the way we do things that has to be incorporated into our daily lives.
NTD News, Canada.
Well, that's a heartwarming and inspiring story. Now, coming up, we're expecting a press conference from the National Transportation Safety Board to give us an update on the investigation into the plane collision over the Potomac River. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
بیست و 16 سال عمري ما هفت
اما داعش کردیان برانبر خشک و دایکانی ازدی ما کاری که دور لهمو چمک دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارودوخی که است های به تایبت عراق و سوریه بشه که دگرت و با حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
ریم بو
أو هفت روش بونجو وداعش أذكر
تامبوم كراقوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بحر في ذنب وباوان رحمنا ودمنا سؤالنا من خادران نزل باوان وفستم بس نا قوبس ناش بيجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبرم تي حمري زارود الدم واسسي وان همو جيبرم
وحشیگریه که توا عیاره ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرده و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده کرده اما نه روزانه دست فروشیده
اليوم التوزيع كلنا نصيب.
Imagine being a child, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Just like all of you, I had problems sleeping. I had tried every pillow out there and nothing worked. I'd flip-flop all night, use my arm for support, and fall asleep, or I'd wake up with a sore neck or maybe a headache. Well, quality sleep comes from keeping your neck straight at night. You have to fill in that space between your head and your bed. That's why I invented MyPillow. MyPillow's patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it doesn't matter if you sleep on your back, stomach, side, or any combination of all three.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night, and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get Classic King MyPillows for only $19.98. Queen size just $18.98. Standard Classic MyPillows only $14.98. That's right, only $14.98. Plus all orders $75 or more ship absolutely free.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Our top stories today. We're expecting a press conference from the National Transportation Safety Board to update the investigation of the plane collision into the Potomac River. And another contender to add to the long list of possible TikTok buyers, President Trump has created a new wealth fund that could buy the social media app. Trump's firing off the tariff cannon and countries are responding. Some are playing ball and making agreements to halt the tariffs, and some are firing back. Find out how companies like Temu and Shein will be affected by the tariffs. And new tariffs could mean new zip codes for companies. Taiwan announces support measures for companies impacted by tariffs who are looking to relocate.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
And President Trump signing an order to create the first ever U.S. sovereign wealth fund. It comes as he's negotiating tariff deals with Mexico and Canada. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Iris, good afternoon. Please, what's the latest from the White House?
Just now, President Trump signed an executive order to create the first ever U.S. sovereign wealth fund, and that is an investment fund to be administered and owned by the U.S. government. It's also another fulfillment of his 2024 campaign promise. Back on the campaign trail during his speech at the Economic Club, he said that he will make the U.S. rich through means like tariffs and other intelligent things, and this is one of them. And back then, Trump vowed to use it to invest in roads and bridges and other infrastructure projects, and today he also hinted at using it to partially buy TikTok. Watch.
As an example, TikTok, we're going to be doing something perhaps with TikTok and perhaps not. If we make the right deal, we'll do it. Otherwise, we won't. But I have the right to do that. And we might put that in the sovereign wealth fund, whatever we make, or if we do a partnership with very wealthy people, a lot of options.
And during the signing of the order to create this sovereign wealth fund, Trump also said that the 10,000 troops that Mexico is sending to its northern border will be permanent. We know that earlier today, Trump said that he has agreed with the Mexican president after a, quote, very friendly call, that Mexico will send 10,000 National Guard troops to its northern border to stop the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. And in return, President Trump says he will immediately pause the 25% tariffs on Mexican goods as part of the deal. But Trump, during the signing, also said that tariffs are still on the table as the two sides continue to negotiate over the next month during this pause. And during that signing ceremony, Trump also hinted that he will speak with the Chinese leader Xi Jinping within the next 24 hours about, of course, the 10% tariffs that he is vowing to slap on Chinese goods, over also its role in allowing fentanyl to be going into the U.S. And meanwhile, on Canada, we know that President Trump has already talked with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about this, but no compromise or deal has been announced yet. Trump is slated to speak with Trudeau again at 3 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon. And just now at the White House, a top economic advisor to President Trump, Peter Navarro, just talked to us reporters here, and he said that it's not a trade war, but instead it's a drug war. He said that President Trump is proactively trying to stop the flow of fentanyl into the U.S., which is killing a lot of Americans. He gave the example of how China is sending small parcels of fentanyl through Canada and ultimately ending in the U.S., and he says a small glass can kill a lot of Americans here. And so we are seeing the Trump administration moving full steam ahead to negotiate these deals, hopefully to stop the flow of fentanyl through the borders, both, of course, with negotiations with Mexico, Canada, and upcomingly China. Back to you.
All right, happening now. The president is welcoming the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers to the White House. Let's tune into that.
That's great. Don't worry, you'll get beat up in life a little bit. Your team's many successes were the result of incredible performances across the board, and I'm sure you agree that your coach deserves a lot of credit. He's a great coach. Nobody knows hockey like Paul. He's the league's second all-time leader in games coached and holds the record for the most wins in Florida's Panthers history, and I assume he's going to be around for a long time, right? He's not going anywhere. Coach, I want to be your agent, Coach. Under Paul's leadership, the Panthers have become a finely tuned machine with a rock-solid defensive and offensive. Your offense is great, your defense is great, the whole thing. It's very tough to beat. And I will tell you, I looked at your current record. You're doing pretty well, right? You're nicely positioned. Yeah, you know the expression, he's nicely positioned. I love all these ties. This is so cute, these people. Look at them. I walked in, I said, I think they like Trump. I like them. And you aren't just great protectors of the net. You're also known as the biggest brawlers on ice. Wow. I was with a man named Wayne Gretzky the other day. Do you know Wayne Gretzky? Did you ever hear of Wayne Gretzky? The great one? And he was telling me about a gentleman that protected him named Marty McSorley. Do you know that? You ever hear of him? I don't know if he was a good hockey player, but they say he was very tough. And Wayne was saying he was great as far as he was concerned. He had tough cookies. All of the team's hard work led up to big showdowns last June where you defeated the Edmonton Oilers in an unforgettable, and it was, 7-game series. The Panthers, as I said, started strong with a 3-0 lead. It was over. It was over. In fact, I didn't watch the next 2 games because I said, this is not going to be too exciting. And then I said, uh-oh. This is not good. Then I really said, uh-oh, right? We went to a game 7, but the Oilers made impressive recoveries and really amazing, actually, the way they played, too. They evened the score and forced a decisive game 7. The series was a battle from start to finish. It made it actually much more interesting. Goalie Sergei Bobrovsky, and he was incredible. Oh, I got to see him. Where is he? How good is he? You were, I mean, Hall of Fame? And even, how old are you? 36. Boy, I tell you, you were unbelievable. What an amazing job you did. And there was a lot of pressure, and I mean it. That deal, that Game 7, you guys had to be like, man. And you played great. That was great job you did. On behalf of everybody that watched, thank you, Bob. It was nothing short of phenomenal during the finals. In the first 40 minutes of Game 1, Bob made an astounding 25 saves. He's the first goalie to get a shutout in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup in 13 years, and his 23 saves in Game 7 were absolutely crucial to securing a very, very tight victory. And Bob started his career as an undrafted free agent and is now a Stanley Cup champion and will go down as one of the great goalkeepers in all-time history. It's really a big honor for you, especially what you were undrafted, so he made a good deal, in other words. Huh? It's the best thing. You'd like to find more like that, huh? So it's what a great achievement, Bob. Congratulations. But the title couldn't have been won if you didn't have a man named Carter Verhaeghe. Carter Verhaeghe. Where's Carter? I can only pronounce that name because I heard it so many times during the service. I said hair is right. I heard that name so much, Verhaeghe. Is scoring champion, and he's the scoring, and really the opening goal of that game was very important, wasn't it? That put you in a position where got you the butterflies out a little bit. Way to go. Congratulations. That's a great job. Everybody. Carter skillfully directed a shot past the Oilers goalie and gave the Panthers your first lead in the series since Game 3. And not to forget Sam Reinhart, who had a legendary shot in Game 7, that certainly was a legendary shot, one that's not going to be forgotten. After securing the puck from Carter, Sam carried it down the ice and flicked a wrist shot, very much like I would do it if I played, right past the Oilers goalie, beating him and beat him on the glove side. Where are you? How did you feel after that shot? Like the greatest feeling or one of the greatest in life?
You still have about 25 minutes to play, so not too good.
You had a long time left. It's true. It's true. You had a little bit to go. Sam cemented himself as in Panthers history for shooting the team's first ever Stanley Cup winning goal. That was a winning goal. Both teams showed tremendous willpower and athletic talent, unbelievable talent. But in the end, the Panthers stood the ground and did what you have to do as a champion. You can't be a champion unless you could go through something like that. And I can tell you, it was hell for them, that seventh game. Going to the seventh game had to be hell because you're either going to win and really be praised because you came from such a horrible position to being life-threatening, right? I mean, that would have been just unbelievable. We've seen them. We've seen it happen. It happens a lot, actually. But you didn't let it happen to you. It's an incredible achievement. And I just want to tell you, you fought for every last point, and it was just something I watched, Mr. Commissioner. I was watching that sucker for maybe the wrong reasons because of that guy. And I was hooked, too, because you fell in love with that team, the guts and the courage they had. You really started to really like them. They're great people, and now I see them. And, in fact, I like them so much, I said, we'll get rid of the fake news media very soon, and we're going to go to the Oval Office, and we're going to take some pictures in the Oval Office. Normally, we don't do that, but we're going to do it for this team and for you. And we'll take, unless you don't want to go, you can go home a little bit early. So today, we honor the three and these just really great athletes. These are amazing athletes, an amazing team, and their outstanding achievements, their wonderful owner. From underdogs to champions, they proved the dedication and hard work can transform dreams into reality. So congratulations once again to the Florida Panthers on just an unbelievable season and a really an unbelievable run because you've been doing so well and now you continue to do well. We'll try and get to one of those games. You know, it's a little tough as president, but I think we can work it out. We'll need a lot of Secret Service. They'll be happy. Well, we're gonna get to do it. You've made your state and your fans very, very proud. And now I'd like to introduce my friend Vinny Viola, who's a real champion himself. He's a champion at everything he's ever done, loves the military. First thing he did, I see him, he said, you got to do this with the Army. You got to move them here. You got to move them. He's giving me all the instructions. You love the military. I would have liked him, we should have had you in Afghanistan instead of the characters we had. Would have turned out a little bit different, huh? Come here. Congratulations. Congratulations. Great.
And you just watched on your screen Trump praising Stanley Cup winner, the Florida Panthers, at the White House. But we're moving on. Elon Musk said today that work is underway to shut down the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID. Musk is heading President Trump's drive to shrink the federal government. Musk said the agency is beyond repair, adding that President Trump agrees it should be shut down. Trump said yesterday that those running the agency had a radical agenda. USAID is the world's largest single donor, established in 1961. Many Republicans criticized the agency for lacking transparency and oversight in how it spends its nearly $50 billion budget, while many Democrats champion it as a source of life-saving assistance for those in need around the world. The agency's website vanished on Saturday without explanation and is still not active. Today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that he is acting administrator of the U.S. Agency for International Development. Here is what he said during his tour in El Salvador.
Are you currently in charge of USAID, or are you
I'm the acting director of USAID. I've delegated that authority to someone, but I stay in touch with him. And again, our goal was to go in and align our foreign aid to the national interest. But if you go to mission after mission and embassy after embassy around the world, you will often find that in many cases, USAID is involved in programs that run counter to what we're trying to do in our national strategy with that country or with that region.
Congressional Democrats called Trump's USAID funding freeze illegal and asked for accountability from the Department of Government Efficiency. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more on this story.
Well, I'm right here outside the United States Agency for International Development warehouse, and Senate Democrats just held a press conference rejecting the executive's attempts to shut down or trim down this important agency. We heard from Congressman Jerry Connolly, Jamie Raskin, and even Congresswoman Ilhan Omar from New York and Congressman Goldman all called the actions of the executive illegal. They called Elon Musk a corrupt oligarch and that he was elected by no one to take these actions. Of course, we also have seen protesters and workers of USAID show up to these headquarters. And we also saw the congressional delegation of Democrats attempt to go inside of the building despite the building being shut down today for internal audit. So we've heard from congressional Democrats. They are contesting the actions of the executive, in particular arguing that the power of the purse, the power to assign funds to government agency is a power reserved to Congress and not the executive. Republicans in general in the Trump administration are talking about their mandate to reduce government spending. And of course, let's remember that the United States Agency for International Development has a budget of close to $40 billion on 2024, a significant amount of money that, of course, the Trump administration has ordered through the Department of Government Efficiency to look at and see if they align, as we heard from Secretary Marco Rubio, with an America First policy. Let's listen to what President Trump and also Elon Musk had to say about it.
What we have here is not an apple with a worm in it, but we have actually just a ball of worms. If you've got an apple that's got a worm in it, maybe you can take the worm out. But if you've got actually just a ball of worms, it's hopeless. And USAID is a ball of worms. Mm-hmm. There is no apple. And when there is no apple, you've just got to basically get rid of the whole thing.
It's been run by a bunch of radical lunatics, and we're getting them out. USAID, run by radical lunatics, and we're getting them out, and then we'll make a decision.
It's worth mentioning that congressional Democrats have made the point that they're willing to have a discussion on modifying the United States Agency for International Development, but having that conversation in Congress and not dictated through an executive order. Back to you.
Now over to South Africa, where a civil society group today backed President Trump's threat to cut aid to the country. But the group urged the president to target the country's politicians rather than its people.
Punish the politicians that are pushing destructive policies. Do not blanket punish the country. And we'll see where that goes. It's now still early days. We'll see what the investigation that Trump has announced concludes and what it finds. But AfriForum's stance is punish the politicians, not the citizens.
AfriForum is an organization focused on advancing the interests of Afrikaners, a subgroup of the country's white population. President Trump said yesterday that the country is confiscating land and badly mistreating, quote, certain classes of people. A new law grants the South African government broad powers to confiscate land without compensation. The law states that land may be taken when it is deemed just and equitable. South Africa defended itself today against attacks on the policy made by Trump and Elon Musk. South Africa's president issued a statement saying the government had not confiscated any land. He said he's looking forward to engaging with Trump to foster a better understanding over the matter. Taking a short break, up next, Elon Musk doubles down on his $1 trillion goal. He says DOGE can take $1 trillion out of the deficit next year. We have other DOGE updates after the break.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang Omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3. Greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
Yeah, so there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
And welcome in today's Business Matters. Could a three-peat for the Chiefs be a snooze for fans? The cheapest ticket price for Super Bowl 59 has fallen below $4,000 on the secondary market. Reseller TickPick is tracking a 30% decline over the past week and a more than 50% drop compared to last year's record-breaking game. And this Sunday, the Kansas City Chiefs will take on the Philadelphia Eagles at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. TickPick's CEO is pointing to a number of factors for the decreased demand. Number one, cheap fatigue. The team is hoping to score a record 3 championship rings in a row. Also, the chosen arena has larger capacity than last year, and the city of New Orleans is still reeling from a recent terror attack. Meanwhile, OPEC Plus will not be updating its output despite President Trump pushing for the organization to bring down prices. The group of oil-producing countries agreed to stick with its policy to gradually raise oil output starting in April. It also removed U.S. government data from its sources used to monitor its production. OPEC Plus and Trump clashed repeatedly during his first administration. And now, back in office, Trump is arguing that elevated gas prices have helped Russia continue its war in Ukraine. The U.S. government could become a possible new owner of TikTok. Today, President Trump signed an executive order to create a sovereign wealth fund within the next year. There were a few details about how such a fund would work, but he said it could potentially buy the popular video app. Typically, these kinds of funds rely on a country's budget surplus to make investments, but the U.S. operates at a deficit. In the past, Trump has floated that such funds could be financed by tariffs. The creation of the Sovereign Wealth Fund will likely require approval from Congress. European stocks fell during early trade in France, Germany, and Britain today amid Trump's tariff threats. The head of a portfolio management firm explains the potential impact.
And that will certainly fuel inflation on the one hand, but on the other hand, it will also encourage consumers to perhaps consume less. So, for now, the danger of an economic contraction is just around the corner, and that is the problem that Trump also has to deal with. So if he wants to make deals, he has to act quickly now to avoid shooting himself in the foot.
And he went on to say that Trump is a deal maker, and on top of that, described his tariff threat as a negotiating tactic. He pointed to worries over their potential impact as to why the market dipped earlier today. Germany's DAX index opened around 2% lower this morning. A judgment upheld in a lengthy legal battle with the chairman of Samsung. Jay Lee has been found not guilty of accounting fraud and stock manipulation. He will now be able to focus again on leading the world's top memory chip and smartphone maker. Lee has faced legal challenges for nearly a decade, including from this case. A lower court has cleared Lee of all charges related to a 2015 merger between two Samsung affiliates. The Seoul High Court upheld the ruling. Critics argue the decision showed leniency to Lee, who's been accused of tightening his grip at the company at the expense of the country's pension fund and other investors. Cases down, pressure up. Pfizer is struggling to impress investors with its non-COVID products. Revenue for the drug maker climbed to nearly $60 billion during its pandemic peak. Now its stock is trading at less than half its pandemic-era highs. And adding pressure to that, to Pfizer, is health experts pointing to signs of a much smaller wave of COVID-19 cases this winter in the U.S. compared to previous years. COVID products are still a profit driver for the company, but investors are looking for improved performance from other products like Pfizer's cancer drugs, for example. And OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and SoftBank Group's Masayoshi Son met the Japanese Prime Minister in Tokyo today. That's after agreeing to set up a joint venture to offer artificial intelligence services to corporate customers. It will be owned by OpenAI and a company established by SoftBank and its domestic telecoms arm. The Japanese investment giant will also pay $3 billion annually to use OpenAI's technology across SoftBank Group companies. Picking up and moving. Taiwan said it will support companies that plan to relocate to the U.S. after President Trump announced new tariffs. Additional levies have been added on imports from Mexico, Canada, and China as well. Taiwan's companies are in a vulnerable situation. Not only are they key producers for critical tech products with many factories in Mexico and China, President Trump has also threatened tariffs on imported chips. In a statement, Taiwan's economy ministry said it will provide information to help companies affected by new tariffs. This includes U.S. states to invest in local laws and assistance in finding partners. And Taiwan has banned its government agencies from using DeepSeek, a Chinese AI model like ChatGPT, and it's citing security concerns. In a statement issued today, the Taiwanese government said the Chinese AI model poses risks of information leakage and other security concerns. But zooming out, besides Taiwan, countries like Italy, South Korea, France, Belgium, and the United States have all raised concerns about whether the Chinese AI model would leak their user data to Beijing. And some countries are already preparing a probe against the company's operation. More on the impact of Trump's tariff moves. Cryptocurrency prices slid today, with Bitcoin at a 3-week low. The risk of a trade war spooked investors and caused a sell-off across financial markets. Here's more.
Bitcoin hit a low of $91,441 overnight. Smaller cryptocurrency Ether has lost nearly a quarter in value since Friday. Over the weekend, President Donald Trump imposed 25% tariffs on Mexican and most Canadian imports and 10% on goods from China starting Tuesday. Canada and Mexico vowed retaliatory measures. China said it would challenge Trump's levies at the World Trade Organization. Industry data shows almost a quarter of the 100 largest cryptocurrencies have lost a fifth or more in value over the last 24 hours. Data also showed Trump's own cryptocurrency slid below $20. The coin was launched shortly before Trump's inauguration and initially surged, hitting highs above $73.
Hello, Bitcoiners.
There is added downward pressure on crypto after a strong rally in the wake of Trump's election. Some investors have felt disappointed at the lack of immediate moves to boost crypto or loosen regulations since he took office. Bitcoin touched a record high over $107,000 on January 20th when Trump was sworn in as president.
And Stellantis is making sharp maneuvers over management as it searches for a new CEO. The world's fourth largest automaker announced a number of changes. This includes one with CEO candidate Antonio Filosa. He is the head of North American operations and will be adding global chief for quality to his plate. Now, the restructuring comes after former CEO Carlos Tavares abruptly quit in December. This was over differences with leading shareholders after a profit warning. In a statement, the company's interim executive reiterated that the search for a permanent CEO is well underway and is expected to conclude in the first half of this year. Meanwhile, the Chinese regime has denounced the Trump administration's tariffs. Trump imposed the 10% tariff on Chinese goods on Saturday. Trump said China has to stop the flow of fentanyl into the United States. The Biden administration also called out the Chinese regime on shipments of the chemicals needed to make fentanyl. The Chinese Communist Party says fentanyl is America's problem. The regime will challenge the tariffs at the World Trade Organization's, Beijing's Finance and Commerce ministries also are saying they would take unspecified countermeasures. Now, tariffs put in place by President Trump canceled the de minimis duty fee exemption for products that cost under $800. That is how companies like Temu and Shein have been able to profit from selling extremely cheap items that used to bypass strict import searches and regulation. The de minimis rule also made it easier for fentanyl and precursor chemicals to be shipped into the country. NTD Sean Marshall has more details.
Fast fashion and cheap product haul companies like Shein and Temu could be hit the hardest by President Trump's 10% tariff on imports from China. Trump has revoked the de minimis duty-free exemption for shipments below $800. The Chinese e-commerce giants have been using this loophole to import goods into the U.S. without the usual customs restrictions.
So the biggest hit will be those players as well as Amazon, which ship a lot of those goods into the States. The players that will benefit most from this are companies that make those products domestically, or other companies that may make raw materials or other intermediate inputs that go into the supply chains of the U.S.
Even U.S. companies like Amazon could be affected, as a portion of the company has been exploring this cheap product haul sales structure. But one of the biggest targets of the tariffs is the fentanyl crisis. Imports of fentanyl and its precursor chemicals have taken advantage of the de minimis exemptions to avoid inspections.
Right, the U.S. is really unhappy with the fentanyl use because it's killing Americans. And so we're at the point now where the Trump administration feels emboldened to actually do something about it.
Trump also cited the large number of immigrants who enter the U.S. illegally from Mexico and Canada.
We're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in.
President Trump, if cartels are now going to be seen as foreign terror organizations, would you think about ordering U.S. Special Forces into Mexico to take them out?
Could happen. Stranger things have happened.
On Sunday, February 1st, Trump ordered 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports and 10% on goods from China starting on Tuesday, February 4th. Trump has declared a national emergency over fentanyl and illegal immigration and said that the tariffs will remain in place until the emergency ends, though he placed a 1-month hold on the tariffs on Mexico. As after Mexico agreed on Monday to reinforce its northern border with 10,000 National Guard troops to slow down the flow of illegal drugs. The agreement also includes a U.S. commitment to prevent trafficking of high-powered weapons to Mexico. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Next, lawyers for Alphabet's Google and Fortnite maker Epic Games are set to square off in an appeals court today. Google hopes to reverse a jury verdict and a judge's order forcing it to revamp its App Store. Epic sued the tech giant in 2020 over its alleged monopoly on how consumers access apps on Android devices. In October, District Judge James Donato ordered Google to restore competition by allowing users to download rival app stores within its Play Store. Now, Google has argued that its Play Store is in constant competition with Apple's App Store. The company said that in its appeal that Donato was wrong to issue an order affecting users and developers nationwide, not just Epic. The order is on hold as the Ninth Circuit considers Google's appeal. And the U.S. dollar surged past Canadian and Mexican currencies as Donald Trump's tariff barrage kicks off. The Canadian dollar and Mexican peso slumped to multi-year lows while the China's yuan dipped as well. Some analysts believe Canada and Mexico's economies are at risk of recession. The Eurozone economy could face further stagnation as well if tariffs kick in. The euro touched a more than 2-year low, while the Swiss franc slid to its weakest since May. The Australian dollar hit a 5-year low as the New Zealand dollar dropped to its lowest since October 2022. The Japanese yen, on the other hand, remained resilient. Bitcoin was at $95,000, sliding back below $100,000 to its weakest in nearly 3 weeks. And Elon Musk is doubling down on his goal of lowering the deficit by $1 trillion and gives us a list of updates on DOGE's progress. Here's more.
On X Spaces Sunday, head of DOGE Elon Musk doubled down on his goal of reducing the federal budget deficit by $1 trillion next year. He explains how he believes this will cut down inflation.
We have a $2 trillion deficit, which is far in excess of economic growth. If we can get that deficit in half, from 2 trillion to 1 trillion, and we can get the economic growth to match that 1 trillion growth in the money supply, that means there will be no inflation.
Musk says $1 trillion could be saved just by targeting waste, fraud, and abuse, citing examples like fake people collecting Social Security, fake Medicare payments, and even fraud by foreign entities.
American entitlements are being defrauded by people not even in the U.S., from many other countries, because the fraud controls are so weak. There are professional foreign fraud rings operating that are taking somewhere between $100 and $200 billion a year.
Other DOGE updates. On Monday morning, 20 government consulting contracts focused on strategic communication and executive coaching were terminated, immediately saving $26 million. In the previous 6 days, the number of building lease terminations increased from 3 to 22. This is for unused government buildings where many work from home, saving $44.6 million. DOGE also posted a chart of over 100 DEI-related contract cancellations, showing a grand total of over $1 billion in savings.
Over in Ontario, Canada's most populous province, it's scrapping its $100 million contract with Elon Musk's Starlink. Ontario Premier Doug Ford said he's ripping up the contract and, quote, won't do business with people hell-bent on destroying our economy. Ford signed the large deal last year to bring high-speed internet to rural residents. The move is the latest retaliation since President Trump imposed tariffs on Canada on Saturday. Tariffs are as high as 25% on most goods. On Sunday, Ford called the tariffs illegal and said they will cause inflation for both countries. Ford also said Ontario is banning American companies from provincial contracts. He said that will result in U.S. businesses losing out on tens of billions of dollars in new revenue. Meanwhile, a Japanese family has a creative way to cope with rising prices. It keeps their dinner table simple, satisfying, and cheaper. Here's more.
37-year-old Kazuki Nakata carefully tends to his plants in the small yard outside his home in Kawasaki, Japan. What started as a hobby during the COVID-19 pandemic has become a valuable source of fresh produce for his family as he grows his own vegetables. Cabbage prices in Japan made headlines this month in Tokyo, soaring to 1,000 yen, or nearly $6.50, around the average minimum hourly wage. The staple crop is one of many items driving up the cost of living in a country with stagnant wages. As the cost of living rises, Nakata's family feels the financial benefits of homegrown food more than ever.
I didn't start out with my family's finances in mind, but when I think of how much it helps with the household budget now that prices are going up, I'm glad I got into this hobby.
In 2023, Nakata left his job at an electronics store to focus on growing vegetables. He grows 47 types of vegetables, including lettuce, onions, and daikon radishes, in empty plastic bottles, drink cans, and even his bicycle basket. Nakata also created a YouTube channel where he posts videos about it. It gained around 4,500 new subscribers in the second half of January alone. With vegetable prices where they are, Nakata says the interest is understandable.
Whenever I upload a video, there are loads of positive comments saying things like, wow, or I want to try this too. But I also get comments like, this is really important now that vegetables are so expensive. So I get the feeling that everyone is becoming aware of the issue.
Recent government data show that while agriculture prices have risen, the average vegetable intake among Japanese adults reached an all-time low in November. The Nakata family, however, is going against the trend. They say they're eating more fresh vegetables than ever before.
I feel like the taste of vegetables you've grown from seeds is so many times better than normal. These vegetables are grown with love, so they're different.
Okay, on to Wall Street. Here's what happened today. The major stock indexes closed lower, but partially recovered from initial steeper losses. And that came as U.S. President Donald Trump delayed tariffs on Mexico after his orders to levy tariffs on 3 countries sparked a global scramble to safe haven assets earlier in the day. And of course, all this comes as the stock market had already been pulling back last week after Chinese startup DeepSeek unveiled a breakthrough in cheap artificial intelligence models that sank tech stocks. And that's all for today's Business Matters. But stay tuned. Up next, more than 100 more people were on a plane on an airport runway in Houston when an engine caught fire. Find out more in just a minute.
Right now at Mathis Home, buy one La-Z-Boy recliner, get the second one free. That's right, buy one recliner, get the matching recliner absolutely free. Recliner pairs start at just $7.99. It's your chance to save on the handcrafted quality and comfort that La-Z-Boy is famous for. And get 2 great chairs for one low price. They're all in stock now with easy financing and fast free delivery. Buy one, get one free on La-Z-Boy recliners, only at Mathis Home.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by US News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Welcome back. Secretary of State Marco Rubio tells the Panamanian president to reduce influence by the Chinese regime or face U.S. action. To dive into this, we're joined by NTD's Washington correspondent, Jack Bradley. Jack, good to see you. What's the latest on this?
Good to see you too, Don. Well, President Trump suggests today that the U.S. could take back control of the Panama Canal by force. Now, that's as he said that Panama has violated its treaty of keeping the Panama Canal neutral, letting control of this critical waterway fall into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. Watch.
And we either want it back or we're going to get something very strong or we're going to take it back. And China will be dealt with. And we didn't give that to China, we gave it to Panama. We shouldn't have given it to Panama, but Panama, as you know, has violated the agreement. Totally violated the agreement. So that's in the process right now. But they did have a very good meeting with the head of Panama.
Now, the U.S. government built and operated this canal in the early 20th century, and under President Jimmy Carter, control of the waterway was handed over to the Panamanian government on condition that it remain neutral. However, the Chinese Communist Party leases the main entry and exit points of the Panama Canal. It's a Hong Kong-based company controlled by the CCP. Now, this puts the CCP in a position to cut off nearly half of U.S. trade. That's what's concerning about this, and the Panamanian president opposes the U.S. taking back control of the canal. But after Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with him, Panama said that it will no longer renew its Belt and Road contracts in China. This is pretty huge because Belt and Road is a series of infrastructure projects that China runs, but it saddles many countries that it operates with billions of dollars in debt, becoming debt traps, saddling these countries into the hands, putting those infrastructure projects back into the hands of the CCP. And also, those infrastructure projects double as Chinese military operations. Now, Rubio's trip comes also with an effort to end illegal mass migration. Last year, the U.S. and Panamanian governments signed an agreement to stem the surge of illegal immigrants along the Darien Gap. Here's Rubio in Panama. Watch.
This is an effective way to stem the flow of illegal migration, of mass migration, which is destructive and destabilizing. And it would have been impossible to do without the strong partnership we have here with our friends and allies in Panama. And we're going to continue to do it, and we're grateful for it.
And now to further illustrate China's influence in the region, China also has a Confucius Institute in Panama. Now, that just goes to show how much influence they have in Panama. They have them here in the U.S., but they're being gradually closed down. So these Confucius Institutes are CCP-funded education programs used to spread Chinese propaganda. Don, back to you.
All right, Jack, thank you very much for that report. Next, to Philadelphia, where business owners and customers returned to the site of the plane crash near Roosevelt Mall yesterday. The accident left some locals rattled. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the community impact.
Retired teacher Susan Wolf visited the Philly pretzel factory Sunday to support the business. The 54-year-old was pretty shaken by last week's plane crash.
It's scary. I mean, the mall has been there. I've lived in this neighborhood my entire life. I'm 54 years old, so this is my neighborhood. And to know that it was so close to the mall and all the new stores that came into the mall recently in the last few years, and it's just so sad.
Marinucci's deli owner Andrew Doherty recalls hearing the crash.
So we heard it. We heard a loud bang. We didn't know what it was, maybe a car accident, something like that. And we went outside and saw the smoke cloud. And the building shook a little bit. The doors were popped open from the blast.
A quarter-mile area was still closed off to the public. Doherty said he was worried about his community.
There's 20 or 30 businesses that lost they probably won't reopen. And we are thankful because we're in the spot, but again, we're tragically sad for what happened in our neighborhood.
Doherty added he hoped the local community would come together to help those who lost their livelihoods. At least 7 people died when a medevac plane crashed near the shopping center Friday. 19 people were injured. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Meanwhile, disaster averted at an airport in Houston. More than 100 people were evacuated from a plane on the runway yesterday after an engine caught fire. No one was injured. United Airlines Flight 1382 aborted takeoff after the crew received an indication that one of the engines had failed. This terrifying video taken by a passenger shows flames leaping out from under the plane's wing. The plane was due to depart from George Bush Intercontinental Airport to New York's LaGuardia. The Federal Aviation Administration says it will investigate the incident. It comes less than a week after American Airlines passenger jet collided with a Black Hawk helicopter over the Potomac River in Washington. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joined an NFL press conference today to answer questions about plans for the upcoming Super Bowl in New Orleans. Officials say they're confident in their security precautions after a New Year's Day attack killed 14 people celebrating in the heart of the French Quarter. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the latest.
More than 125,000 visitors are expected to descend on New Orleans this week for parties, concerts, and other events ahead of Super Bowl 59. NFL Chief Security Officer Kathy Lanier told reporters that the league was prepared for the championship game, the 9th on her watch.
Over the last 2 years, we've worked tirelessly to develop and refine all of our security plans. And following the events on January 1, we came together with unwavering resolve to ensure that the people of New Orleans have a safe, supported, and are here to fully enjoy the excitement of Super Bowl 59.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said 700 personnel from the department would be deployed to protect the game.
The world is a much more dangerous place, but here in the homeland, we are safe. And I will tell you that right now we have no specific credible threats to this event at the Super Bowl.
The FBI has 450 personnel in New Orleans as well to investigate threats and crimes this week.
If you see something, say something, means grab a local law enforcement officer, a security personnel, someone that you see that is there to protect the public, and our communications plan will ensure that everyone is well informed to deal with it and to make sure that we can go forward and celebrate this great game.
The city already has begun shutting down and limiting traffic on roads near the Superdome. No one will be allowed inside the cordoned-off area surrounding the stadium without credentials. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And President Trump speaking at a White House event after holding a second call with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. It comes as a 25% U.S. tariff on most Canadian goods is set to go into effect in just a few hours. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Good afternoon, Iris. What's President Trump saying this afternoon?
Good afternoon to you as well, Don. So just now we were inside the East Room where President Trump hosted the winning team of the Stanley's Cup, the Florida Panthers this year. And basically he got gifts from them, talked with them, got photos with them. And the athletes also wore red ties to show support. It was a very cheerful event. And on his way out, President Trump did take two questions from CNN, one of which asked him about, of course, how his second call with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau went this afternoon, to which he responded very good. He was also asked about if the tariffs on Canadian goods will actually go into effect tonight as originally planned. He said, watch. And of course, this comes after he held a first call with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau earlier this morning amid discussions about tariffs. We know that Mexican president has already basically announced that they are agreeing to send 10,000 National Guard troops to the border to stop the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. And in exchange, President Trump will pause his tariffs on Mexican goods for a whole month while negotiations continue for more measures. And those troops, the White House told us this afternoon, will be permanent. And meanwhile, just earlier today on the White House grounds, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt also briefed us on the initiatives about the border. And she told us that while there are concerns about, of course, price or increases due to the tariffs, he said that President Trump has been doing a lot to lower the cost for everyday Americans, adding that human lives are also very expensive. Watch.
I think for those of us who have children, there's not enough money in the world to bring back the lives that have been lost because of the illegal drug and border crisis. And the president is committed to ensuring that Canada and Mexico and China understand that the United States is not going to be a dumping ground for illegal fentanyl that is killing young people in this country.
And I did ask Caroline Leavitt about how their first call between Trump and Trudeau went this morning, if there were any roadblocks or any potential grounds for negotiations. And she told me that Trump, of course, was talking with Trudeau for a second phone call, and a readout from the White House will come out very soon. Back to you.
All right, Iris, thank you very much. And that's it for today's NTD Newsroom. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific. Thank you for watching. Don Ma signing out.